All right. Welcome, everyone. It is always, say the least, an honor, to be in everyone's presence. It's a gift from Source Creator, just to be alive and breathing at this juncture of the forward advance, if you will, of humanity. We're at I would say, an all-time high in terms of opportunity, in terms of possibility, in terms of potential, uh, being uh, able to be expressed and experienced. And uh, I say it often, and I'll repeat it now. I don't know of a better time to be alive than now in the course of the human experience, of what they call the human history. Uh, if I was given a conscious choice, the choice would be now, to be here, uh, now, uh, to be experiencing life as Allah has allowed it to be evolved. And that's where we are right now. And so we want to welcome everyone. If you have not brought along your deep sea diving gear, I would strongly suggest that you pause and grab it. You just may need it. Not only from what International Instructor Benjamin Bilal has prepared uh, in terms of the main meal, but what his lovely wife, uh, our master instructor, Karima Medina Bilal, has prepared for us as well. Uh, and I would hate to call it a warm-up, but be ready. Just be a word to the wise should be sufficient. Just have your like I say, your deep sea diving gear prepared and be ready for what we have in store for us today. Again, I think it's a testament to what I just shared with you in terms of my having a deep sense uh, and awareness that this is no better time to be alive in human history to experience where we are today, just being present, and accounted for. So we want to welcome any and all that may be with us today for your very first time. You're in for a treat. Uh, and if you don't have writing materials, I would strongly suggest that you get something to take notes with, and that we start our experience today with gratitude. It's something to be able to prepare yourself internally, well, for what we're about to experience. And the absolute best way to do that is to uh, take charge of your internal environment by quieting the noise internally. And the best way to do that, of course, is to focus on the myriad of things that you have, that I have, to be grateful for. Uh, and so take a moment or two and write those things down, at least 10 of things that you have to be grateful for. It sets the emotional state. It opens the your energy systems. It allows the mind to be receptive. When you focus on all that there is to be grateful for. It's just something there about just setting the vibrational frequency internally, so that you can receive. So with that, we'll go ahead and start officially uh, with the first seven ayat, the first, some people will call them verses of the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العظيم. Again, we want to welcome everyone to the University Online Learning course. This is our Nunetics class. And if you're with us here for the first time, we welcome you. We welcome, just relax and just open your mind. Be ready to receive uh, what I would call a gift uh, from the creator of everything that exists. The source creator has in store for us today a the subject matter that International Instructor Benjamin Bilal is going to share with us uh, is in and of itself, it just signals uh, a need for us just to be open and attentive, you know, be ready to give you attention to what's being shared. He's going to go into some key words in both in the Arabic and in the English, and of course, we have been told, and it's been reinforced repeatedly that words actually make people, and if we will open ourselves to that reality, then we'll prepare our minds and our hearts to be able to receive the words that's in store for us today. And again, we're going to have a presentation by one of our master instructors, uh, our dear Karima Medina Bilal, and she's going to share with us subject matter that I'm anxious to hear. Uh, Live long, but never get old. Saving your brain in retirement. Now, that's a subject matter that I'm ready to hear. And I'm anxious and wide open for how she's going to deliver that. Our national instructor, of course, he's going to uh, lock in on some key words, some key concepts that will open our minds and our hearts to be able to appreciate the time that we're living in right now. Uh, we're in a prime time for uh, an evolutionary growth of humanity. It's a time in order for us to navigate the life experience, we need direction, we need guidance. We need to be able to uh, have our perception fine-tuned so that as we experience the environment around us, and as we stay more actually in tune with the environment, our internal environment, we'll be able to receive the guidance, the direction. Source Creator has given us a guidance system inside of ourselves. We've been conditioned to turn a deaf ear to it. But the more we are inclined to uh, quiet the noise and listen very deeply, we'll be guided even in this time when there's so much uh, confusion and chaos in the external world. We have a built-in guidance system uh, inside of ourselves, and I'm just confident that what International Instructor is going to share with us in his subject matter today, along with uh, what Karima Medina Bilal will share with us, will prepare us again to uh, to be able to receive the internal guidance that Source Creator has placed in our very being, in our bodies, in our minds, in our emotions. Uh, we have a guidance system uh, that's always speaking to us. Question is, are we listening? Are we allowing ourselves to be guided? And the kind of uh, presentation that we're expecting for our class today, I think is just the thing that we'll need to kind of tune our ear, especially our inner ear, our sensitivities, to be able to open us up, to be able to clearly hear that quiet, sometimes not so quiet voice from within that's always guiding us. You know, it may seem like the world is lost, but again, we are constantly being guided by Source Creator from everything around us, from everything that we see, that we hear, that we sense, and again, and most importantly, from coming from within our very own souls. So just be aware of that as we listen today, that as international instructor and as Sister Karima Medina Bilal share uh, their presentations with us, just keep in mind that there's a they'll be reflecting actually what's already inside of you, and again, we are learning to be able uh, to listen internally. I think that's the most valuable thing that we can do in this day and time. Quiet the noise, to be able to meditate, to concentrate, to contemplate, you know, and give that internal uh, focus. And as we do that, then the guidance will be clear for us. There's a lot of activity externally to uh, to distract us, but with the intention of focusing internally, then the distractions will fade into uh, the distractions will fade into just what they are, and that's really of no real substance. They'll fade into that state, and the more you focus your attention inwardly, then the things that you should be feeling, the thing that you should be thinking, the things that you should be doing will become clearer and clearer. And this practice that we engage in the beginning of our class each Sunday, that of uh, just being grateful, that just tunes your sensitivities to be able to receive the clear guidance that Allah has clocked into our very essence, to our very beingness. So with that, uh, I'm just anxious to hear from one of our master instructors. Uh, she has consented to be a part of a mastermind environment where we are actually, and she's well qualified and equipped to share in this environment where uh, with her experience in the internal environment as a person in uh, with the wellness slash medical um, background, being aware of how the human body functions internally, with the systems of knowledge that we have built into the very makeup of the human constitution. Uh, Again, I'm looking forward to hearing about living long. I certainly intend to do such, uh, and not getting old. That's definitely something that's not on my plate, you know. And then to saving my brain uh, in retirement, you know, at the stage that I'm at in my life right now, I'm 78, and I think I've done a pretty good job of doing that to save my brain, you know, and to be able to utilize it. So I'm just anxious to hear what Karima Medina Bilal has prepared for us today. So if she is ready, we are ready to receive uh, her contribution. Uh,
Inshallah, inshallah. Uh, just so that you know, I'm definitely ready. And Brother William, I salute you. You have beat the odds. You at age 78, you're doing pretty good, my brother. You're doing pretty good. And to all the rest of you, the rest of our listening audience, irrespective of age, what I intend to present to you today is going to be of benefit to you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. And when I do that, you should be able to see my notes. And in that, you'll be able to follow along without having to write down everything that I say. And that's important because the way our brain works is it's difficult to do both at the same time and get the equally good results. So the title of my presentation is Live Long, but Refuse to Get Old. Refuse to get old by saving your brain in retirement. I begin with a memory of my grandmother who used to correct me all the time about being grown. When I would set out to do something on my own, my grandmother would tell me, "You ain't grown." And you better listen, because as long as you're here, you ain't grown. When you're grown, you can do what you want to do. But right now and right here, you can do what you're told. And I did. I did. She was of the spare the switch, spoil the child vintage, as I think many of us are. Whether it was the switch, the belt, the electric cord, the black comb, or just the hand. There was no sparing of that when it came to discipline. And it was always done with the intent of making me, though I hated being the recipient of this guidance, making me a better person. And the proof is in the pudding because of that. I learned very quickly. Let me figure out what's the right thing to do because I didn't like getting whoopings. I did. There was no spankings, there's whoopings. And there's a whole presentation I could do on the psychology of whoopings and how I think today's generation, which they're now calling Gen Beta, it's past Gen Z, Gen X, and Gen Alpha. We're now in Gen Beta, who, for all I have seen, are a lost group. These are the lost children who are primarily left to grow as weeds. And when they finally are grown, they won't be able to do jack unless something radical happens. So, Brother William, I salute you and all the others of whom I am not aware in your efforts to do something to change the off the cliff trajectory that the youth of today appear to be on. That may be a function of media focus, that being clicks, and the worse you make things seem, the more likely people are to pay attention to you. I pray that is not the case. I pray that there really are children out there that are about more than what we see. So I would ask myself, now that I am grown at age 73, I think I can claim it. I am grown. And my husband will tell you, you can't tell me much. I listen because I believe it is appropriate to listen. I listen because I believe that what I'm being told is of value. But I'm grown now. And I have to remember, what was it that I wanted to be when I'm finally grown? And in the course of raising children, in the course of making a living, providing for self and for family, that got pushed way down. That got pushed to the back of the closet. So I say, and I'm asking myself, oh, I pretty much answered the question. What is retirement really? Some people say it's when you stop working. As you will find out as I proceed, working is actually something that keeps you young. However, working under the right conditions, working doing what you love, whether or not it makes money for you, when you are retired is what will keep your brain functioning at highest capacity. Ah, and what we want to do as we live longer. See, I refuse to say get old. As I'm living longer, I want to avoid fried brains. And you may ask yourself, what is fried brains? That is when your brains just don't work the way they used to. And avoid, I hope to tell you, I hope to provide for you the things that do fry your brains, give you monkey brains, give you spaghetti brains, and hope that you can take some of these strategies, she said as she scratches her head. You can use some of these strategies to keep your brain young, as they would say, plastic. I like to say elastic, and functioning at the highest capacity. That is my intention for you. That is what I wish for us all. And with grace from the Creator, you'll be able to do that. Now, I want you to understand something. Most of, I would think, the little I know about the members of our class here, most are over 50. A significant number are over 60. However, as you're going to learn, maintaining your brain, protecting your brain, optimizing your brain begins in childhood. Childhood, as a matter of fact, it begins in the womb. And this is where us, quote unquote, old folks, us grown folks, almost said old folks, us grown folks, this is where we come in, because we understand now that we're alert, awake, and aware that what you do when you are pregnant, and menfolk, what you do before you create a baby with your sperm, has a great deal to do with the way the child develops. Bad seed, bad plant. Hmm? So I'm going to give you a disclaimer now. And the disclaimer is that most of the information I'm about to give you comes almost directly from this book, The End of Mental Illness. I urge you strongly, very strongly, to get this book, The End of Mental Illness, and I urge you to read everything that you can get your hands on by Dr. Daniel Amen. Dr. Daniel Amen is a neuropsychiatrist. And the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist is that a psychiatrist is a medical doctor. He's able to write prescriptions, whereas a psychologist is not. Psychologists, people are people who study human behavior, who may or may not choose to do counseling and offer guidance in behavioral therapy. But this fellow here has pioneered a process, a technology, a school of thought that I think revolutionizes the whole practice of psychiatry / mental health. As you heard, if you listened to my previous broadcast, we want to get rid of the term mental illness, and we want to consider dysfunction, mental dysfunction, as a medical condition because your mind lives in your brain. And if your brain does not function properly, then your mind will not function properly, and hence your life will not function properly. So versus simple, what now people primarily do is called cognitive behavioral therapy. That's where they speak about your behavior, how you think, etc., which has a definite place. But in the same way that you would not go to a cardiologist, a heart specialist, and expect that he will tell you, well, listen, just think positive about your heart. I'm not going to do an EKG. I'm not going to do any kind of studies of your heart. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to listen to your heart. I'm simply going to tell you what I think is wrong with you. And I'll actually prescribe some medications without doing any tests. And let's hope for the best. Based on your symptoms, based on what you tell me, and based on the way I arrange these symptoms, it's what's called a symptoms cluster. That you would think is malpractice, and in my book it is. So what Dr. Daniel Amen has pioneered, and I am in process of upgrading my certification, she said, smiling broadly and feeling rather proud, to an elite brain health coach, which in which we promote the practices and the psychology that Daniel Amen has pioneered. So most of what I'm telling you comes directly from his book, and the commentary is mine. So I'm advising you that you must confirm whatever it is I'm suggesting to you or presenting to you with your healthcare provider and confirm that it's appropriate for your health condition. I'm not there to see your records. I'm not licensed in your state, most likely. So I'm not assuming the position of your healthcare provider. I am simply providing information for your education and your entertainment. Okay? So, how does the medical establishment treat old people? And I wrinkle at this. I get my hackles up because the medical establishment says that mental health illnesses in the elders, in our elders, are just normal for your age. They're just normal for your age. You should accept decline, mental decline, as just part of living longer. Well, what a horrible thing to say. Who wants to live longer and not be in control of your mental faculties? I reject that out of hand. Now, to be sure, the Fitra teaches us that anything that has been around for a long time is going to change. But as you have learned from me, I hope that how you change is something that you have control over. And you'll get, as we proceed here, you'll remember the basics, right? No matter, I maintain that no matter what your age, your brain can be better if you put it, I'll take out if, I'm going to say when you put it in a healing environment. So I'm referring you back to the basics that I hope you've memorized by now. I want you to filter everything you hear about your health or the health of the human organism. I want you to filter it through the FITRA and through these three concepts here. They come from, giving credit where credit is due, Dr. John Tilden. He wrote a book called Toxemia. Okay? And remember that we humans, matter of fact, all creation, are created by the source creator, the creator of all things, the master of the universe, right? We are designed and created to live in a specific environment. You will not find whales in ponds. You will not find saltwater fish in fresh water. You will not find snakes in the Arctic. Why is that? Because snakes are creatures that rely on their environment to maintain their temperature. And if they're in the Arctic, they're going to die. You will always see reptiles sunning themselves on rocks. You'll always see them hibernating in the winter because the conditions are not favorable to their growth, longevity, or maintenance. They can't survive there. However, us mammals, most of us will be in a variety of conditions because depending on where you were conceived, what your ethnicity, you were created to thrive in a specific environment. So we do not live, most of us do not live in the water. We are earth creatures. We do not live as birds do in the air. We don't fly unless we're in airplanes. In the Fitra, we walk, run, crawl, live on the earth because that is the environment in which we were created to thrive. So when we are given that environment, we will thrive. As I sit before you, I'm surrounded by my plants. I call them the old ladies. I give them water, they grow, they thrive. I give them light, they grow, they thrive. If I take away those conditions, or I put the ones that need sunlight into the closet, they will shrivel up and die. The ones that like lots of water, if I give them too much water, if I don't give them enough water, they'll shrivel up and die. And the other ones, the snake plants and the succulents, they don't like lots of water. And if I give them too much, they will turn yellow, turn mushy, and die. So I give them the right environment, they thrive, deprive them of that environment, and they either adapt, they sicken, or they die. I want to turn your attention to another book that I've been reading. I'm thinning my book collection, and I have some gems. Oh, I've got some gems. And one of them is called The pH Miracle for Diabetes. The pH Miracle for Diabetes. Somebody put that in the chat. The pH Miracle for Diabetes by Dr. Robert O. Young. Why am I bringing that up in this context? Because he iterated in a great way, a simple to understand way, this same concept. And here is what he theorizes is the cause of diabetes and the remedy for diabetes. He says that when the tissue that surrounds the cells becomes unfavorable to the cells, he calls it an acid environment, then the cells do precisely what I just described. They adapt or they sicken and they die. When cells die, as you will see in diabetes, when cells die, this is when you start getting gangrene. This is when people's toes and such start falling off. And this is something that you most definitely do not want. So he says that you don't, just like with a fish, you don't just you ever wonder why children can't keep goldfish? Because if you don't have a pump in the water to filter out the wastes, if you just have the goldfish in a bowl and you keep feeding it, what will happen is the fish eats it, the fish poops in the water, and pretty soon he's swimming in his own wastes. And as the environment becomes more and more acidic, eventually he will die. Well, this is precisely what Dr. Young and one of his predecessors way back in the 1800s, Dr. Antoine Béchamp said, you don't treat the disease, you treat the environment that causes the disease. And it makes perfect sense. So I can expand on that at another time. But here's one of the takeaways. You must choose the environment for your brain. And how do you do that? You maintain an optimum environment in your body. Your brain lives in your body. So what you do for your brain is going to be good for your body, and what you do for your body is going to be good for your brain. Ta-da! I just reduced neurophysiology to a couple of sentences. Eh? And one of the things that happens here, your brain does not have to deteriorate with age if you remain diligent about your health, for as long as you want to have a clear and happy mind. Short sentence, you do not have to become senile. You do not have to become forgetful and like Mr. Magoo, just wandering around, bumping into things, becoming a burden on people. That doesn't have to happen. You do have some input on that. And one of the things that you're remedying right now by listening to what I'm saying is when you stop learning, your brain starts dying. So that's not going to happen to you all, because you are here right now learning what the best you can learn from what I have to say. And you choose what you learn very carefully. Remember, if you were taught certain things in childhood, and if you listen to all that's told to you through the mainstream media and the social media, then you will learn certain things that may not be beneficial for your health, for your well-being, or for your highest good. So you choose what you learn very carefully. Here are some factors that accelerate an aging brain. Now, remember, you're going to live long, but you're going to live healthy. Now, some change is natural. Everything in the fitra changes. A brand new car runs differently than a car that's 40, 50 years old. That doesn't mean that the car cannot last, doesn't mean the car cannot run and run well, but it all depends on how you take care of it. And think about that. If you had a classic car, it's one of my favorites. I love classic cars. If you had a classic car, let's say an L-Dog or an Electra 225, deuce and a half, deuce and a quarter, would you take care of it, or would you just allow birds to poop on it, rats to make nests in it, allow it to mold and mildew and fall into disrepair? Not if you valued it. So why would you do less for your brain? Factors that accelerate the aging accelerate aging the most in order of importance: schizophrenia, marijuana abuse, bipolar disorder, and ADD, ADHD. Just for the record, Dr. Amen says this ADHD falls under the rubric of this, and you can just say ADD and be correct. Alcohol abuse and smoking. Now, you may think that schizophrenia is not under your control. As you read his book, you'll find out that there are plenty of things you can do to reverse that condition, you definitely have a choice in whether or not you use marijuana. Yes, there are medical uses for THC or CBD, as it's called, the CBD1, CBD2. But smoking marijuana just for recreation, not good for your brain. And as a child of the 60s, boy, did they sell us a bill of goods, right? Smoking marijuana became the thing. Whereas way back in 1920s, there was actually a film called Reefer Madness. You get a chance, pull that up on YouTube. Reefer Madness. And what they postulated there, that if you smoke marijuana, it'll rot your brain. Turns out they were right. Alcohol abuse, Quran speaks about that. As a matter of fact, most of the holy books that I'm aware of speak against alcohol for recreational use. Does it have a value? Yes. But for recreational use, not good. And smoking anything is bad for you, bad for your lungs. There are some people who say smoking marijuana, there's evidence and studies that say that marijuana is not harmful for you. Dr. Emmon can show you SPECT scans of the brain that would prove conclusively that that's not true. And any pulmonologist will tell you that smoking anything is bad for your lungs. Even hot air, superheated air, regardless of what's in it, is bad for you. Why? Because it will singe the hairs that line your lungs. They're called cilia, and they're very important because they sweep stuff towards upwards so that it can get trapped in mucus and you can expectorate it or cough it up and hock it out. Now, if you burn all that off and if you scar the tissue of the lungs and you impair the ability of the cells in the lungs to exchange air, well, now you're going to have major problems. High blood levels of iron, I'll talk about that later, and red meat consumption. Now, I differ with Dr. Amen and other people on this particular point because there are people who live in areas, countries, continents, where green food doesn't grow or grows very sparingly. And these people exist on cattle. People in like Botswana, for example, the Kikuyu people, if I'm not mistaken, in countries in Africa, I think it's Kenya, they love to drink the blood of their cattle. So I don't know that that is necessarily true for all people, but it is certainly true for many people. Here are some facts that you should be aware of. If you live to be 85, you've got a 1 in 2 chance of losing your mind. Losing your mind. That's not a very positive thing to aspire to for living a long time, is it? Statistics show that Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia actually start in the brain decades before people have any symptoms. We know that you can rot a child's brain if you give it too much sugar, if you allow it to have too much television time, too much computer time. You don't have to take my word for that. Look at anything that you see now about, as I was saying, Gen Beta and Gen Alpha, the youth of today and the generation just before that. These are people that have an attention span that's like 10 seconds long because they spend most of their time on computers and on screens and not doing the things that help the brain. But it is true, the older you get, the more serious you need to be about the health of your brain. The older you get, the longer you live, the more serious you need to be about the health of your brain. When you're a child, you don't have much to say about what you eat. You have to eat what's provided for you. You're in the environment that your parents can provide for you. The school environment, the social environment, you don't have much control over that. But once you get older, it's on you. It's incumbent upon you. It is your responsibility to provide the optimum environment for your brain and for your body. The older you get, the more likely you are to struggle with your memory. And if you add to that social isolation, hearing problems, and overall cognitive function, you will find that the quality of your life goes down. Doesn't have to. But as we all of us know, many people, this is the result of the way we've been living, largely living in ignorance of what makes a healthy brain. My children love to make fun of me in this respect. Uh, I'll be looking right at him and I'll say, what's his name? You go over there and get me this. Could not, for some reason, I can't call the child's name. And I say, Mom, I'm your child. How you don't know my name? And I just say, keep living. It'll happen to you. I see, I maintain, this is an aside, but I maintain that one of the reasons mothers, or let's just say caregivers, main caregivers, but I'm speaking from a mother's perspective, one of the reasons that we can't finish sentences, and one of the reasons that we can't necessarily remember a particular child's name is because we don't get to finish a sentence. They say it's menopause, and I'm sure that's something that's got something to do with it. But I can be talking to one child, and the other child comes over to me and interrupts what I'm saying, so that I have to stop what I was doing to tell the second child, just a minute, I'll be with you in a moment, and try to remember what it is that I was saying in the first place. Now, as we all know, what you do repetitively forms certain neural pathways in your brain. And after 18 years of your children interrupting you before you have a chance to finish your sentence, and then we add to that changes in hormones, I believe that that's one of the reasons that women, mothers, anybody who's around, and it can happen to men folks, but especially caregivers, this is the reason that we can't remember stuff or complete a sentence, drift off in the middle, because you just have years and years, decades of being interrupted before you have a chance to finish your thought. Now, we also know from a previous broadcast, I presented to you something called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. One of the ways that we use to break a person's chain of thought, to help them change state, is to ask a completely irrelevant question when they're in the middle of an emotional rut. So a person's going on and on and on about everything that's bad, and they're in a negative state, a negative train of thought. And then you come in with something really unrelated and quite, you'd say stupid. Like, why would you say something like that? Because it interrupts, called a pattern interrupt. And it interrupts the train of thought. Now, I'm confident that whoever it is, Richard Bandler, Michael Grinder, they got that from watching children. As the brain deteriorates with age, it leads to a greater risk of mood problems such as anxiety, irritability, temper flare-ups, and irrational behavior. And as I said, some of this is due to hormonal balance or imbalance. So one of the things you notice, and here are a couple of things that you can do to remedy this, from biological. If you're in pain or if your joints are stiff and you don't feel good because this pain, now this is not the pain that's going to have you writhing all over the floor, but it's just enough. It's like a toothache. It's just enough, like on a scale of 1 to 10, it might be a 3. So it's like a low-level hum in your head or in your body. It'll make you cranky. So what do you do about that? Well, you try fish oil. And your brain loves and needs fish oil for the omega-3s. So if you're not already using that, get some. If you're somebody who is allergic to fish or you don't like the taste of fish oil, you can get a similar result from what they call vegan omega-3s. This would be algae or flaxseed oil. or comes from nuts, investigate it. There's another substance called SAMe, and that's an abbreviation for a 2-inch word, but you can get it in the health food store. It helps with pain, as do curcumins. Now, where do you get curcumin? Well, this is the thing you get from, wow, and it just went away just that fast, but turmeric. Comes from turmeric. What's the active ingredient in turmeric? It's something called curcuminoids. So you get that. Now, mind you, you have to take a tip from the Indian folks or Asian Indian folks. Whenever you use turmeric, which is a root, you have to use something like ginger or pepper in order to absorb the goodness from it. If you just take it without those, it does you no good. You can't absorb it. Food does matter. You must avoid barbecue, charred meats, black, when you cook it over the grill until it's black. Why? Because that kind of heat, and when the grease drips off it and gets to the fire, that delicious smoky taste that we all love is really a toxic chemical called glycotoxin. And that is linked to memory and cognitive problems. Not to mention, it also creates something called heterocyclic amines, HCAs, and these are known cancer-causing agents. So you shouldn't do that, or if you do it, don't do it often. And you better to bake, air fry, or stir fry. And I think air fry is a really good option because you can stop using seed oils. You shouldn't use seed oils anyway. What do I mean when I say seed oils? Cottonseed oil, safflower oil, corn oil, canola oil. All of those oils, when you heat them, as you would to fry meats or whatever, they create something called trans fats. So a lot of the discussion about eating a low-fat diet is really centered around limiting the trans fats, because you must have fats in order to create cholesterol. Oh, did I say cholesterol? Yes, because you must have cholesterol or you die. Now, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, that's another discussion. Look it up. And there's lots and lots and lots of information that you'll get about the HDL, the LDL, the VDL, all that. But that's too much for this particular discussion. Go back into our library and you'll see that. Better idea is to saute it or use your slow cooker. An interesting thing about slow cooking versus frying, we should get 20% of the water that we ingest from our food. So if you are frying things, then you are reducing the amount of water that is in them. And so unless you're really willing to increase your hydration, you are inadvertently making yourself dehydrated, and that's not good for you. Get your eyes checked at least yearly. Instructor Bell and I went and had that done that's this week. And praise be to Allah, if you get yourself a good optometrist, that is a doctor who is trained to look at your eyes, to check how well you see, test how well you see, and detect certain illnesses before they become problems. One of the things that can happen if you're not paying attention is your metabolic state, whether you have diabetes or you don't, your blood sugar levels, your insulin levels, all those things can damage the delicate blood vessels of your eye. And then before a person knows it, they got cataracts and they go blind, retinal hemorrhages, things of that sort. So an optometrist, who is a doctor, can look in your eyes and see those things and then refer you, if necessary, to an ophthalmologist. And that's a doctor that can do surgical procedures. Optometrists can prescribe drops for you. When you go and get your eyes checked, they can check you for glaucoma, which is an increase in pressure of the eye. That'll also cause blindness. So you want to do that. And don't be afraid if you need glasses. And by the way, I could tell you a story. I won't because we don't have the time here. But the amusing story is when you go to get your glasses, the price that you are quoted is not necessarily the price that you have to pay. So make sure that you check and you ask for discounts. Use discounts. Go on your computer, ask for discounts. Check around on your computer or your iPhone for the cheapest prices for glasses around. I'm personally not caught up in the style piece because as I looked around at the different kinds of frames, I saw that they largely fell into certain categories and groups. What you were paying for was whether the name was it Louis Vuitton or Versace or something. I don't care about those people. Ain't paying me to advertise their eyeglasses. What I want to know is, can I see, and does it look decent on me? That's it. So when you do that, I was able to shave off. Trust and believe me now, I was able to shave off $300 from the price of my glasses because I asked for all those things and I didn't fall for the hype. Master shopper, 10th degree, 10th Dan, black belt master shopper, Karima Medina Bilal. You better ask somebody. Get your hearing checked every year. And please, please, please avoid the earbuds. Those Bluetooth things that you put in your ear, stay away from them. Yes, using earphones that have the wires, yeah, it's cumbersome and it can be really annoying. However, Bluetooth emits a certain radiation that you're allowing to go directly into your brain. And over time, it fries your brain. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Radiation is bad for your brain. And if you're one of these people that goes to sleep with earbuds in your ears, if you're one of these people, as the children are, tragedy in the making, they on the phone all the time, and they've got those earbuds in their ears 6 hours, 8 hours a day, it's destroying brain cells. Don't take my word for it, look it up. So if you have an interest, and not to mention, when you use those, you'll frequently hear depending on the quality of the earbuds that you have, it makes a sound when you have reached the maximum decibel level. And if you continue to force high levels of sound, high decibels of sound into your ears, you'll eventually destroy your hearing. So think about that. Yeah, we do love the funky bass. I'm right in there with you. But you must use some wisdom and you must use some judgment in preserving your hearing, because once it's gone, it's a tremendous loss. And Allah gave it to you for free. The creator of the universe gave it to you for free. How ungrateful it is to abuse it. Get your labs done. I've spoken on this before, but specifically get your ferritin levels. That would be the name of the lab test that you choose. Why? Because if you have too much or too little, it causes problems. Now, women very often will end up on the low scale because of menstruation over years. You think about it, you start your period somewhere now, God help us, some as early as 8 years old, which is really, really young. It used to be somewhere around 11 to 13. But let's take that. And by the time menopause checks in, latest 56, average 53 years old. So you've been bleeding and losing blood every month for 40 years. So in blood is called iron, which we test for as ferritin, hemoglobin. Ferritin, iron is used to make hemoglobin. So when it's very low, it can cause anxiety, fatigue, restless leg syndrome, and ADD. And you might ask why the anxiety or what's the mechanism for the anxiety or the fatigue. Well, if you do not have enough iron in your blood, you can't make enough hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the molecule on your red blood cells that carries and transports oxygen. So if your brain is not getting enough oxygen, it's going to set loose a whole bunch of chemicals that are designed to increase the oxygen to the brain. So the pulse is going to go up, the blood pressure is going to go up, the breathing rate is going to go up, and all of those things are part of your fight and flight mechanism, your sympathetic nervous system. And the result of that is that you will feel fatigue. And if you don't get enough oxygen, you'll feel anxiety. And if you don't get enough oxygen, you'll feel fatigued. So keep all that in mind. Where does that information come from? Well, they did studies of psychiatric patients. This is the group that I think is by far the most abused of all of the abuse categories on the earth. Especially females, especially females. I would much rather be in prison than be in a mental hospital. Greater than 25%, that means greater than 1 out of 4, had anemia, low blood count, low hemoglobin, low iron, which is most common with psychotic disorders. Anxiety, as I just spoke of, OCD, and bipolar disorder. So remember, as I said last week, maybe it is all in your brain. Maybe it's not just all in your mind. Maybe it is just all in your brain, all in your body. Psychological, well, we tend to worry as we get older, and rightfully so, because frequently you've given most of your money to your kids. Yeah, one of the things that I think is the biggest, one of the biggest scams that are out there, and I didn't pick up on it until our third of my birth children, and that is going to a liberal arts college versus getting a trade. Because you dip into your pension, you dip into your savings to send them to college. Most of the time, they go there. The first 2 years are spent and what they call the basics before you specialize into whatever it is you want to be. And most children have no idea what they really want to be. So you're spending good money, lots of money, tens of thousands of dollars of money, and then they come out and they can't get a job. They're there smoking dope and enjoying freedom and having random sex. But what do you do if that's what you actually did? Well, you have to focus on solutions versus problems. If you find in retirement you don't have the amount of money that you need, you have to focus on what can you do to earn more money. And that is using your life experience. You do not have to be a greeter at Walmart. That's not going to get you much money anyway. But your life experience is worth plenty. So you learn how to do things online. You find a way to share your experience just as I'm doing right here. And be certain that if you do that right, and you learn the skill to do that, and there's many ways to do that, many ways to learn the skill, and you get up online, you can make a bunch of money just from talking or sharing your life experience. And remember, it's never too late to do or to be what you might have done or you might have been. It's only too late if you don't start now. Right now. Social. You may very well outlive your mate. You may very well outlive your children. You may very well outlive your friends. So if you find yourself isolated, that's a problem. That contributes to mental unease, right? You must expand your social circle because companionship matters. And I swear, my husband will tell you, I am doing a book on how to date or how to find your mate after I won't say after 65, but let's just say later in adulthood. It's not so much about the romance, but it's very much about companionship, right? If you find out you like somebody, as you get older, it's not so much about what you look like. It's about what you are. It's about who you are as a person. And as you move forward through life, it's important that you're able and enjoying spending time with each other. I mean, in the early years, it's about the reproductive urge, hereinafter referred to as sex. That's reproductive urge, reproductive behavior. As you get older and your hormones level out, it's less about that sex per se, reproduction, and a lot more about are you a good friend? Are you somebody who's going to be there for me when stuff starts getting funky? As it inevitably will. At some point in life, things do get funky. So, what do? Well, you must rely on your spiritual self. All these songs that you hear about, you are everything and everything is you. I have no life without you. You're my everything is horse hockey. The only one who deserves that kind of devotion is your creator. Why? Because even the best of humans will eventually die. The best of humans are susceptible to temptations of the flesh, be they drugs, other people. Nobody wants to be, or no rational person wants to be the object of your affection such that you cannot function without them. That's a great deal of responsibility to put on somebody. Your children, yeah. And you teach them out of that. You teach them independence. So you must find your purpose, especially when you're looking for a companion, first and foremost, at whatever stage of life. You're looking for a companion who understands your purpose, has a purpose of his or her own, and who respects yours. So I can pursue my purpose. You can pursue your purpose. And together, the environment that we create in each other's presence helps to foster the progress of each one's progress, each one's purpose. The Quran says, strive as if to each is a destiny towards which Allah has turned us. Therefore, strive as if in a race towards all that is good. That's what I say. Find and focus on your passion. One of the things that I determined retirement to be is not that I stopped working, but now I'm working doing what I want to do. I'm doing what I love. And the way that you find your passion is look at what you do when you have time to yourself. Me, I love to read. I love to listen to music. I love to sing. I love to write. And you could make a list of the things that you love and post it. And the way that you find the companion that you're best suited for is someone who enjoys those same things. So if you're a person who loves nature, if you're a person who loves the outdoors and you're passionate about that, you will find the greatest compatibility with someone who enjoys that as well, because then you can do it together. Huh? If you're a person who loves quiet and then you find yourself engaged or involved with somebody who loves to make a lot of noise, or if you're a person who loves peace and calm and avoids conflict, and then you link up with somebody and you find out that that person is good for drama, no matter what it is always an issue. That's not a productive relationship. And it's not going to last for long with intelligent people. So what are you supposed to do? Care. Make your brain important. Important to you, and teach those who are younger than you that your brain is important. Avoid anything that ages your brain, whether that is television, whether that is toxins, whether that is drugs, whether that is pornography, whatever it is. Care about anything that damages your brain. Find your why. There's a wonderful book that you should look into. It's called Start with Why. It's the name of the book. Start with Why. And the author's name is Simon Sinek, Sinek. Simon Sinek. And when you find your why, that's when you find your mission. That's when you find your purpose, your reason for living. Continue to exercise your brain with new learning. As you heard me say, I am in process of getting a new certification. I had certification in medicine for 20, 30 years. I decided to let it go when I realized that my passion was not about dispensing pills and every year just learning what the new drugs were so that I could become a dealer for the pharmaceutical industry. I have no problem with people who want to do that, but that was not making me happy. And every time I went to work, I found myself hating it. And sometimes I would have to drive an hour and a half to a location because I used to work in rural health clinics. And all I could think of was, man, someday I'm going to be able to do what I want to do. And so now I get the certification to be an elite brain health coach, which takes into account all the things that I needed to do as a health practitioner. Hmm? You don't have a healthy body, you can't have a healthy brain. But my focus now is on the things that I'm passionate about. That's nutrition, that's healing, that's working with the spirit, that's working with the person's whole life instead of just the person's pancreas, or just the person's heart, or just the person's reproductive system, which is the way medicine, as distinguished from healing, that's their paradigm. You treat the disease. You don't treat the person, you don't treat the environment, you don't treat the conditions because you don't have time for that. What you have is 10 or 15 minutes to evaluate what kind of tests to order and what kind of drugs to prescribe. That's not the way I want to work. And I don't believe that that's the way that the Creator intended me to execute my purpose and my mission, which is to remind people of the body's innate ability to heal itself if you will simply give it what it needs and get out of the way and stop picking the scab. Exercise your brain with new learning, new languages. Our daughter, says that next year she's taking the family to Japan. That's the grandchildren and her mate. I want to go with them. So yeah, I'm learning Japanese. Konnichiwa, y'all. Yeah, why not? Why not? I'm not too old. You're never too old, unless you think you are. Fast intermittently. Intermittent fasting, very important. Why? Because sometimes you have to take the gas nozzle out of the tank and drive the car. Said differently, you have to use up some of the foodstuffs that you have been putting into your body and allow your body to rest from having to process all of that. Allow your brain to cleanse itself. Do cleanses judiciously. Do cleanses so that you can get all the gunk out of your 20 to 30 feet worth of intestines. Yeah. My grandmother, who lived to be, as far as we could document, 108. One of the we don't really know because we couldn't find all the records, but we deduced that from looking at her siblings. One of the things she did religiously was to take what she'd call a physic. She'd take a laxative every week without fail. Every week without fail. And she lived to be that old. And she didn't get dementia until she was like 95. She used to run us crazy. Oh my God, this was a woman who was out chopping weeds with my kitchen knives. This is she would not use clippers. She'd get my kitchen knives, my cleaver, and go out and hack down weeds. She would make brooms out of switches, and she was out there switching leaves in her 90s. Alhamdulillah. Take nutraceuticals that are most useful to slow aging. Now, there's a bunch of them, which I've outlined here. You can look them up. One is called NAC, N-acetylcysteine. Very good, by the way, for when you have a cough, because it thins mucus. Huperzine A, it's a supplement, look it up. Saffron, it's a spice. You'll notice that many of the Middle Eastern and Asian, as in Indian folks use saffron. It turns things yellow, very expensive spice. It's the tendrils from a certain kind of flower, but it adds a very delicate flavor, but it enhances happiness. So definitely get that sage. We know that. That's something that many of the people who have gardens and grow gardens, it's used extensively in food flavoring, savories. And another thing called phosphatidylserine. And that phosphatidylserine improves attention, learning, and memory, and increases verbal skills, helps people in cognitive decline, and even people who have Alzheimer's have been noted and studied to benefit from taking what we abbreviate as PS. So in summary, I'd like you to know a quote from George Bernard Shaw. And he said, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing." So even though we say this all the time in jest, in Ebonics, we say, "Yeah, man, stop playing. You play too much." I encourage you, play. Yes, get yourself some jacks. Play jacks. Play tonk. Play whist. Play pitty pat. Yes, play games. If you can, use jump rope, do the hula hoop, dance, play. Remember, what were the things that we used to do before we had computers? I tell my grandchildren, wait a minute, you mean that they get excited because their iPad went down and needs charging and they're at a loss for what to do. And I say, well, let's play. Let's get some crossword puzzles. Let's build something with blocks. Let's do a puzzle. Huh? Why don't you go outside and play? Used to be that if you could not go outside and play, that was a punishment. I want to go outside. You cannot go outside until you clean your room. You cannot go outside until you do your chores. Now it is considered punishment to not give a child a phone, an iPhone at that, when they are in elementary school. Can you imagine? And my grandchildren will say, well, Gigi, how is that possible? I said, sweetheart, there were no cell phones when I was a child. Matter of fact, we didn't even have we could go to parks, but we went outside and we had a piece of chalk and we could play for hours with a piece of chalk drawn on the sidewalk. You understand what I'm saying? So by all means, keep on playing. Keep on playing. My grandmother would say, keep playing and see what happens. So if you want more information about what I've just said, remember, you can reach me by email at truehumanhealing@gmail.com, or you can text or call me at 516-209-6069. I urge you to email me first or text me first, because I will be involved playing. I will be involved living, and I may not have time to give you the attention that you want and that you deserve. But either way, let me hear from you, because I want the best for you. And I do want you to live a long time, and I want you to refuse to get old. So with that said, I'm going to give the talking stick back to, I guess it's Brother William or Instructor Bilal. And if there are some questions, I can take a few. I'll be happy to tell you what I can tell you.
Assalamu alaikum. There was a question inside the chat from Muhammad Abdullah. He asked about olive oil.
Olive oil is great stuff. Olive oil is great stuff. I use it with coconut. I use that, and I use coconut oil when I'm cooking. I stay away from the seed oils, and it's in the Mediterranean diet, which is largely promoted by the medical establishment. It is liquid gold. So get yourself a high quality olive oil and by all means use it. I'm a big fan of coconut oil. I love it. I'll eat coconut oil from a spoon. Unrefined coconut oil, it tastes delicious and it is wonderful for your skin. I use olive unrefined, cold pressed. Make sure you get whatever oil you get, make sure it's cold pressed. And that's important because in order to extract the oil from the different seeds, whether it's cotton seed, safflower, or sunflower seed, whatever kind of oil, they use machines that produce high heat. And they also use another chemical called hexane to extract the oil, all of which change the chemical composition of it and make it not so good for you. So if I'm going to fry anything, which I don't often, but when I do, I use unrefined pure coconut oil and I use it for my skin. I use it for my hair. I think it's great stuff. And it makes you, one caveat, if you put coconut oil on your skin, it's going to make your spouse or your children want to sniff you. I think that's great.
The other questions from Ilianette, she asked about grapeseed oil.
What kind of seed oil?
Grapeseed with a G.
Grapeseed oil. I don't have much experience with that. So I tend to stay away from it. I don't know that it's bad or that it's good, but I do generally stay away from seed oils. Whichever kind of seed it is, I tend to stay away from them. If you're going to get it, make sure it's cold pressed and hexane free.
I think that's the only questions that are in the chat.
Well, all
So
right.
thank you.
I guess that means I did a good job.
Yes. It was very
Well,
thorough.
thank you.
And I was able to put the books that you recommended in the chat as well.
Good, good, good. So
I'm
by
sure
all
that-
means, I wish you so much. I wish you all the very best of health. And I'm going to leave you now and go make a nice, I don't know, am I going to bake it or stir fry it or what? But I'm going to go make dinner, Sunday dinner for Instructor Bilal, and I'll get back to you soon. So enjoy. Peace
Thank you
and
so
blessings. Salam alaikum.
much. Thank you so much.
And Nava, I need you to hold me down for a couple of minutes and I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, so we're
Thank
going
you.
to just start off by thanking, I give a special shout out to Sister Arlene. Arlene, thank you for inviting. You have a new member or just a guest that you have with us, Bahira Muhammad. I don't see your name on here, so I'm assuming you're in here as user or one of the numbers that I'm familiar with, but we want to thank you for joining our community, and we really hope that you get the benefits that we all have been getting for years from being a part of this group. And if you have any questions or if you're comfortable opening up, it could be either you, Arlene, or Bahira yourselves, opening up your mic and just kind of speaking to what brought you here. And if you have any questions, that would be a good time while we wait for Instructor Bilal to prepare his presentation. Arlene, would you like to speak? If so, you can unmute your mic. Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Salamun alaikum, everyone. I did invite Bahira to come and to listen in today. I met her in 1958 when my family was introduced to the Nation of Islam. And when I began to go to Muhammad University of Islam, #2 in Chicago. So we were classmates and we have been friends going on 70 years. So I'm so pleased that she was able to listen in today, inshallah.
Thank you. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. It's great to hear. I'm happy to have her a part of this session as well. Instructor William, are you still with us? Okay, he's in the background. Does anyone have any questions Or does anyone have any input, anything that they want to speak to, a finding, something that they've learned, something that they can apply from okay, I see you, Mike, unmuted, Karima. I'll give you.
Wasn't going to say anything, but I did come across a word that we use in gratitude. And the word is abundance. And I had it on my floor right next to me, and I was talking to my cousin. And I'm not gonna, say it, but the word kept popping out at me. I'm saying like, "Ooh," I'm talking to her right, and I'm looking at the book. The word was abundance. So I said, well, I asked another Muslim, I said, what do you see in that word? He said it. I said, no, I'm not asking you for the meaning of the word. I said, what other word do you see in the word abundance? The first word that I came out with, Abu. I said, well, what is Abu? What is that telling me? And then I looked at the other part of the word, which was dance. And it all clicked into sync with me. What is Abu dance? And I said, it is you being in line with what Allah, I'm saying Allah, but Abu is also, as Jesus said, was Father. It's being in line, I'm going to put it this way, and then I'm going to change it around, in line with the Father, or being in line with the future that Allah has given you, and your life is supposed to be in coherence with what you are supposed to be doing in life. So that is the dance. When you realize that God created you for a purpose, and you living in that purpose, and you living according to where, in alignment with everything, that is the dance. That is abundance. And I came up and I just loved that word. I said, oh, dance. And yes, I mean, it was so exciting when I looked at that word and I started putting it together. And it just clicked. I said, that is what we are supposed to do. If you are in the vibration of bringing abundance into your life, what is the better word than to fulfill it? That is part of gratitude. Yes. So I see the instructor's back, so I'm finished. Let him.
That was great. That was a great little insight into how Numetics could really help us. Because Bahira is here. If you're in the background, you can hear me, but if you can't hear me now because you're probably occupied, you're going to hear this replay. But Karima's quick breakdown of the English word abundance and how she connected that meaning to some of the Arabic words or Fitra-based knowledge of understanding the letters is pretty much what we try to uncover in here, and also try to apply in our understanding and our learning of the Fitra and Allah's message, what he wants for us. When you said that, honestly, Karima, it made me think about when we learned about the A of negation. And I thought about the word you said, abundance. I thought about bound, like to be bound. But if you're not bound, because A negates it, then you're not bound by anything. Hence, abundance, to have, like you said, more gratitude, or to be full, so that just came to mind by your breakdown just now. So
you got the letter noon in there, and you notice a hole with the seed and all of that stuff. It's printing. It just speaks to why we're here, so to speak. We came here, and we're constantly evolving and growing, so to speak. And that's part of the seed too. But I didn't come here to talk about that. I see the instructors here, and I'm waiting for him to tell us his piece, because my little piece is just minute.
Thank you. I'm happy that you put that opportunity to just speak to a finding because it's in us daily. Like that's the thing. Like we're trying to make this a part of our daily lives and how we see the world. So thank you for speaking to that really quickly. We have our Master International Instructor Benjamin Bilal. He's here and prepared for us. So I'm going to pass the talking stick over to.
Well, thank you, thank you so much for your interest in this class. And that's to all of you who are out there. And the last piece that I just caught with Karima, giving us some insight on some important words, the last of which I heard was abound and abundant, which I believe are related also. And there's a surah in the Quran called the Abundance, Surah Al-Kawthar, if you're not aware of that. Surah Al-Kawthar. And the word Kawthar in Arabic is related to the English word, this might surprise you, it's related to the English word author. And an author is the one who has the authority. So you don't become truly abundant until you're able to manage your authority. I hope that makes sense to some people right away. If not, just listen to the playback. You'll hear those connections. Abound is also related to the Arabic word, the Quranic term abd, which we normally translate as ABD. Abd, which they generally translate as servant, but it strictly, in the most strict sense, does not mean servant. We've been given a lot of misnomers about Quranic phraseology and Quranic terminology, and we're off to the races with that terminology, and it's really doing nothing but breaking down our internal system. Our internal system wants to be what Allah designed us to be. And Allah says that He designed us to exist within the best case scenario of frameworks. Fi Sunny Taqweem, in the most excellent of organizational designs, is what that phrase means. It doesn't mean in the best of molds, like we're used to hearing. Who wants to be like mold? So it's speaking to a category of existence that has been created to operate at its optimum. And its optimum and your optimum and my optimum is our authority. So Kauthar translates to author, which is authority. And we know that with every authority, there comes a certain level of responsibility. And the English word responsibility obviously means the ability to respond. So if you have no ability to respond, then it's impossible for you to take on significant responsibility. Now, if you're just trying to react, that's different. Most people are in the habit of reacting to circumstances and situations that life presents to them, but they are not in the habit of responding, because you have to have responsibility in order to respond. But in order to react, all you have to do is act in turn. And it doesn't even matter what the action is. You're just, they did this, you do that. They said this to you, you say something similar back to them. And you're back and forth with just the acting. And that's what I call a human doing, because he's just acting. He's just doing something. But it doesn't mean that his doing is leading to the well-being of his human being. Something. You are a human being, not just a human doing. No creature on this planet that we know of is just here doing things. They are here contributing to a universal cosmic ethos, it would be called, where everything has significance, no matter how small it looks, no matter how large it looks. It's not being more significant than the tsetse fly. Allah has calculated usefulness in everything that he created, and that's why everything that he created should be respected. And everybody, I don't have to say, that he has created, that he has been responsible for bringing into this great existence that we call human life, every single individual is important also. You shouldn't judge it by where they come from nationally. You shouldn't judge it by what their particular belief system is religiously. You shouldn't judge it by what they appear to be nationally or ethnically or any of those other lower levels of identification. Because when you do that, let me tell you the secret about that. Whenever you judge somebody by their identity, you're judging them by something that is topical. It's not as important as their essence. And because we're not used to being taught about human essence and what that means, then we're left at that position where we have to begin judging just by what we see with our five basic senses. How do they look? How do they sound? Is there an accent? I'm going to judge them by their accent. How do they smell? If we can get that close. We're judging by these physical attributes that can change. That's the beauty about just doing things. Everything that you do as an action can change because actions change and actions begin to even improve with the knowledge that you have that can also improve. But when you are being something, you don't have to be acting like anything. You don't have to be acting to make sure that you're in the top 10 of the collegiate and the top 15 of the colleges and the top this of the money makers and all of that. All of those are identities. Do you realize in the Quran when Allah says to Adam that he wants him to name the things, all of them? That's in the Quran. What were they doing before they gave these things names? What were those things doing? Does it mean that they didn't exist? No, they were here existing before he told them, name the things. That's cholesterol, that's diabetes, whatever you're seeing the names of things as being. But those names are identities, and identities are not the real you. Because someone said she's fat, or someone says he's ugly, that's not your identity. That's your temporary circumstance. And it gives you time to work on it if you feel it's worth working on, to lose weight or to improve your beauty or whatever. And that's going to be your individual choice, but that's not going to be what Allah judges you by because that's not really you. Man, if Allah had to judge us by being so-called black people, most of us would be in trouble by now. Say these people went through 300 or 400 years of slavery, came out, got all of this grace from God, and they're still out there messing up. Wow, what a people. But it's not that intrinsic you, that essence that's doing the mess up. There's something else that's blocking your true beauty. Something out there that is hacking into your system so that you're not allowed to improve to the level that Allah would be most pleased with. And we're here to find out what those hacks are. And we want to replace the hack with the hawk, with the truth about who we are as human beings. And we'll give you better terms directly from the Quran because even the term human being is not in the Quran. It's not a Quranic phrase. It's not a Quranic term. The term that is in the Quran, we're going to be discussing that extensively when I get into my lecture today. But let me just officially open up with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And that is with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful Redeemer. And even when Allah says with his name, he's saying with his particular identity. which means that even Allah is not exactly what you're seeing in that attribute. Because I can be merciful. I don't have to be Allah to be merciful. I can be knowledgeable. I can't be all knowledgeable, knowing everything, but I can share that attribute with Allah. But He's sharing that with us so that we will be able to identify Him on the level that we are used to identifying things. But other than that, He says that He is Ahad. Kul huwa Allahu Ahad. Kul huwa Allah. Huwa. That's the part we miss. Not just He, because He is not a gender. So if we hear He and we're thinking male genitalia and we're thinking macho disposition, Allah is a He, we've missed the whole idea of what we can say Allah is as a what instead of a who, because Allah represents the most refined energy available to us. Allah is a supreme level of cosmic energy that has always been, will always be. You know what they say about energy? You can't destroy it. It can change. It can change its presentation. You think it's this, and it's really that. But when you boil it all down, it's the same energy. Even the energy running through your human biological system is the energy that created Pluto and Mars and Mercury. I know this sounds different. This is one of those flash reports that come on the news every now and then that shakes people up every now and then, but that's what it's intended to do. That's what the Quran itself is intended to do, because the Quran is not a book per se, as we've discussed on many different occasions. The Quran itself is a frequency. It's an energy source that we turn to in order to decide our course of life. And it's the course of life that is able to integrate us into the greater course of energy called the cosmos, and what our purpose is in the cosmos. I hope that's understandable to begin with, especially for those who might be new to this channel. I really want you to understand what it is we're saying. So give me 1 second to adjust my camera and to bring up my notes, and we're going to go full-fledged into our presentation for today. Once again, thank you to all who have decided to be here today. I am your official instructor, Benjamin Bilal, and you have attended or are attending the University Online Learning course. And it's a wonderful journey that we're all on. Once again, give me just 1 moment and I'll be back. Okay. Thank you all again on this Sunday, August the 23rd, 2026, for joining us with a class that's going to have at least 2 parts built into it. This is part 1, and it's called the Deep Diving into Quranic and English Words. I didn't want to deep dive into just Quranic Arabic words because most of us don't speak Arabic. Most of us don't speak any foreign language. We only speak English, which in essence is a foreign language. It's not the one that many years ago we were speaking on whatever continent we came from as African Americans, as we're called. But all languages in essence are foreign languages. If you understand what foreign means, just means that it came from somewhere else. Some people learned it when they traveled abroad. Other people learned it because they were born in a different circumstance and situation than their parents, and they grew up learning English or learning Spanish or French or Swahili or whatever the other language is or was. And we're all learning different presentations that are based on, as I said earlier, our external environments. That's where we get our languages from. That's where we get our clothing, our fashion sense from. That's where we get all of the things that we are now calling nude. Those things are really just outer shells or outer dressing that came to be called me or you or them. But the real me, they, you, we is actually a shell. I should say, let me make a correction. The real you is the one that is not the shell. The shell is covering over the real you. When Allah speaks about dress in the Quran, he says that he created dressing so that you might hide your shame. So to dress even is hiding something that is beneath the dress. And you shouldn't be thinking anything nasty or anything gross when we say that. And it's not us that's saying that. That's what Allah says in the Quran. He created labasa, that's the name for dress, in order for you to cover your shame. Now, he doesn't say explicitly what that shame is, or whether he's meaning shame in the way that we mean shame when we say our child should be ashamed of himself. So I'm introducing this level of, we'll call it expertise in the language, so that we can better derive more fruitful and rewarding meanings from the Quran than we've been getting from simply reading Old English presentations of the Quran. The Quran is called Al-Furqan. Al-Furqan. And they say that means the criterion that allows us to be able to judge one thing from another, what's right and what's wrong, what's good for us and what's not good for us. These things are Al-Furqan, but Al-Furqan gave birth to the English word frequency and frequent, something done repetitively over and over again. That's Al-Furqan, and that's what the Quran is actually doing. It's repeating frequencies so that your particular individual level of frequency will eventually match the frequency that Allah has established for your growth and development. So when you look out there and you want to see growth and you want it to be as beautiful as the other things out there that you see growing that you might not even consider to be human, just a beautiful tree, a beautiful flower bed or something, and you see how wonderful is that, and you concentrate your mind on what that beauty is, then that flower bed begins to speak to you. When you see it every morning, it's speaking to your development. And it's letting you know that if you can just match my frequency, you can be as beautiful as I am. If you can match my smile, maybe you can match my handshake. There are a bunch of things that we look to be that other people are, and we love what they are, and therefore we try to emulate them even on the physical level. There are some people who want to laugh like people they admire. Other people who want to do other things on the level that other people are doing because they admire those people and they don't realize they're trying to match their frequency. Even the young folks out here who like to cuss and fuss, they're just trying to match the frequency of Richard Pryor or this rapper or this whatever. They're just trying to match their frequency so that they don't stand out too badly in the presence of people who love this particular character. And that's all they are characters. But beneath the character, is my point, is the real essence that's called you. Or if I'm the one speaking, it's called me or I. When I say I am this, that's my real essence. That's why you have to be very careful what you say you are. Because of what you am. I think in the Bible it says, I am that I am. And there's a similar statement in the Quran related to the story of Musa or Moses. I am that I am. That's not even a name. And that's what I mean when I say you had it before your mama gave you that name. If your mother took that name from you, I don't want you to be Peterson anymore. I don't even want you to be Michael anymore or David. I'm so disgusted with you as a child. I'm going to court to remove that name from the list. Okay, they removed the list. Sometimes the child himself will do it. I don't want to be in this family anymore. I'm going to change my name. Well, as soon as you take that name away, what are you? Are you non-existent? No. During the days of chattel slavery here in this country, When slavery was ended, what did those people become? Many of them became X. They were just signing X when they were signing some documentation. They said, I don't have a name. I have to choose a name, but until I do, and I don't even know how to write. But did it mean that they were not here? Does it mean that they were not important? They were, because they were in existence. And that's what we are prior to all of this naming stuff and all this cultural stuff and all of this language stuff. We are in existence. So when we say we are human beings, the being part of a human is the existence of that human. It means you're here. You're not even being regulated necessarily by space and time, but you are whatever anything and everything else is in the cosmos. How's that for family relationship? You are what the stars are. You are what the sun is. You are what the air molecules are. And like I said, scientifically speaking, if we were to boil all of this stuff down in a library, or not in a library, pardon me, in a laboratory, that essence of the cellular structure, that essence of the atom, atom, would be the same everywhere you look. You can't break it down any further than the atom, than what the atom can be broken down into chemically speaking. Whatever those quarks and neurons and neutrons and whatever else the science is giving this stuff, whatever that is, when you break it all down and you take that atom and you begin to divide that atom up in terms of its essential nature and essence, it's all the same. There's not going to be Africa in there. There won't be any European dominion in that. So what that says to us is that all of this external stuff is actually an illusion. Illusion. And we're here to pull back the cobwebs on some of that illusion, because some of the illusion is beginning to lose us. And we're investing too heavily in the superficial and the artificial, so that the real essence that we truly are made of cannot shine through. You have it. It doesn't have to be brought from somewhere else and given to you. It doesn't have to be grown in some other field and then applied to you. It's already in you. But you have to discover it. And that's what the Quran is. It's a journey of discovery into what the human essence is in essence. And we're going to contribute to that knowledge by speaking again about the deep diving aspects of Quranic English words as well as Quranic words. We're going to begin with the first word that we heard was revealed to Muhammad that qualified him as a prophet. We like to say the first words to Prophet Muhammad, but he had not become a prophet yet. He was in a cave called Hira, Hira. And that's when it said that an angel who they say was named Jibra'il. Jibra'il means the bone setter. It's one who set bones. He made sure the bones were in their proper place. So just with that said, and that's not knowledge from the Quran, by the way, that's knowledge from the stories related to the Quran that they call hadith. So as much as we believe we know about the history of how the Quranic revelation got its beginnings, a lot of it is mixed information between what the Quran itself says about itself, which is the most reliable information, and what other people, scholars, historians, people who have been contributing and building the narrative for these stories have said. So that's the first thing we say. We like to begin our process by saying Iqra is the first word revealed to Muhammad, but you can't even prove that. I know I'm going to start a little trouble this evening, but it's okay. Sometimes you need to stir up a little trouble for the dust to settle so you can see what you walked into. And I'm saying to you that the Iqra story in the cave of Hira is nowhere to be found in the Quran. It should be. You would think it would be as important a story as they say that is. But what we're not understanding is what makes up the backbone for what religion has come to be. And that is a lot of information pertaining to symbols, allegories, mentionings that have come in many cases almost 60 to 70% from other religions that have crept into, found their way into, sneaked into the body of information that we call the corpus of the Quran and what it has to say. So we got to pay attention. That's the most important thing you can do in this class is pay attention. I'm not saying anything bad about the story related to Reed and Iqra and all of that. I'm going to let you determine. I'm going to let you determine that for yourself as you continue to listen, which I hope you will. I hope people don't get so emotional that they just turn the channel or turn off the computer or whatever it is you're listening to, the telephone or whatever. Don't do that. Just listen. Be objective. That's something that we're not taught to be objective. We're not taught to weigh the validity of a thing ourselves with our own brains. We're taught in a way that overrules our own common sense in many cases. And we're quick to say, well, he's got a PhD or he's got a sheikh title or imam title or minister or rabbi title. And therefore, I don't even have to question them and why they made that decision to believe that. If they believe it, they saved me a lot of work. Now I don't have to read it. I don't have to study it. I don't have to investigate it. The rabbi did it for me, and he's my guy. He's my rabbi, so I accept what he said, and I will argue with you to the death before I disagree with what my rabbi says. And a lot of people feel the same way about their religious leaders as imams, whether they're Sufi, Shi'i, Sunni, whatever, in Al-Islam. It doesn't matter what they are. But I'm going to believe what I was taught from birth is the truth. And that's true for all people who claim religion. Most of them are believing it because this is what they were taught from birth, if they were in that religion from birth, which many people in America were not, especially so-called Black people or African American people. We're practically the only people who were not in the religion of Islam, as they call it, from birth. We adopted it from somewhere else, some other sources, something else that we heard or some other situation until we were old enough to have children, and our children were then born into what we are calling Islam. And a new growth began from there, which is fine. But just understand that this is something that we call religion that was given to us. And anytime you have the prefix re added to a word, it's going to mean that it's being done over again. So religion means something called religion that was done over again. But the people who trained this world were smart enough to not make the word religion an actual word in the dictionary. We have something close to it called a legion. You might want to look that up at some point in the near future. Legion, like the foreign legion, that's in the dictionary, but the word legion, Ligion, is not in the dictionary. But where the word religion comes from is in the dictionary. But most of us have not taken the time and I guess considered ourselves important enough to investigate for ourselves where these words are coming from. Even this word we're about to read here, read, it has an RE before it. That means it's saying something to us that was already done. What was already done? The word AD, which we now call ADD, add. So to read is to re-add. What are you re-adding, instructor? You're re-adding letters and parts of words. That's how you learn to read, by taking this letter and adding it to this other group of letters to form a new word. And that's how you learn to read once you learn what the letters mean or what they represent. So let's begin with that. The first word they say that was revealed to Muhammad was the word Iqra. And it's from the verb qara'a, which means he read a thing as they give it to us. He read something. And as many times as they will tell us that he read something, they never say that he had an actual factual book in front of him. They never say that he had a physical book that he was reading from. So what was he reading from? If the word Iqra means read, and if he wanted to be obedient to the voice that was encouraging him to read, what was he actually doing? We could say he was reading, but not words on a page. Because what we're not understanding is that you can also be reading frequencies. You can walk in a room and read frequencies. You can tell if things are very serious in that room, or if things are very jovial, playful in that room, or if you shouldn't even be in that room at all. You made a mistake and opened that door, and nobody has said a word, but you're still reading, as they say, reading the audience without anybody saying anything. So let's see what they say reading is. It's a verb from the Middle English, riden, iriden. It means to counsel, advise, also to read from the Old English, redan. I'm not going to go through all of these foreign words. It's not important. Let's just get to what the English is saying. To advise, counsel, persuade, discuss, deliberate, rule, guide, arrange, equip, forebode. To read, observe, and apprehend the meaning of something written, utter aloud words, letters, etc. To explain, to learn through reading, to put in order. Oh, I love this last one. For people who are going to believe that Iqra does mean read, then make sure that you include these very interesting kinds of explanations for what Iqra might be saying to your brain. When it says read, it doesn't mean to identify letters and utter them. It also means to put in order. Because if you're not reading in order, you're not reading. You can know all of the letters you want and all of the pronunciations of the letters, but if you're still not reading a sentence in order, then it's just gobbledygook. So this is reconstructed to be from Proto-Germanic, Ridan, source also of Old Norse, Rada, and the other languages here, which are not important. To advise, to counsel, interpret, to guess.
Leave it, please.
So it's from the Proto-Indo-European root, RE, which they're saying is also connected to the idea of to reason or to count. Now you see where the idea of re-adding comes from. Cognate words in most modern Germanic languages still mean counsel or advise. Imran, I believe your phone is open. You might want to check that, please. Thank you. Counsel or advise. Old English also had a related noun, ra'id, or read, meaning advice. And read is connected to riddle via the notion of interpret. So when you're reading something, you are also interpreting a thing. If you're reading the Quran, you're also in the process of interpreting the Quran, because the frequencies that are bouncing into your ear and off of your brainstem are meaning something. And you have to interpret what that meaning actually is for you, your circumstance, and your situation. So information, generally speaking, is all a riddle. Whatever you're hearing, until you learn the meaning of it, it's just one major riddle. It's just a question mark in your mind. And you know, they get the question mark from the outline of your human ear, because you have to be listening in order to participate. You have to be listening in order to even guess at what's being said. If you don't even know what was said, why are you even answering? So the riddle means that you're paying attention. The sense transference to interpret and understand the meaning of written symbols is said to be unique to English, and perhaps under Old English influence. Most languages use a word rooted in the idea of gather up. Here's the most important part of this discourse. Listen. They use a word rooted in the idea of gather up as their word for read. And here are the French and Latin words to support that. So the true root word for ikra is qara'a, and means to collect or to gather. So if you want to continue saying that it means to read, feel free, but understand that the root message of that word is telling you that it means not to read necessarily like we think about reading words and sentences, but first and foremost, it means to gather or to collect. What are you collecting? I'm collecting letters. What are we doing here with the Nunetics? We're collecting letters. We call them seed letters. So what we're doing is actually reading. And what we're doing is allowing us to get a better sense of what is being read. Because we're going back to the basics. We're going back to the root. We're actually going back to the seed. Nothing came before the seed. You plant the seed and you get all of these other wonderful variations in creation. So just remember, again, Qara'a gives us the word ikra, and it means to collect or to gather. That's actually in the standard Arabic lexicon that's online for the Quran, but we're so used to hearing that it means read that a lot of us look at that particular explanation and we stop right there at read, and we don't even consider all of the other things it's saying, like to collect and to gather. That's right there in the dictionary. But they put it so far down the path that you think, oh, well, it really doesn't mean this anymore. It must mean this first thing that it said, which is read. So as long as I'm reading the book during Ramadan or whatever, after taking my Shahada or whatever, and I'm reading this particular surah that was recommended by this particular Imam, and I'm reading the Quran, but not able to explain practically anything that the Quran might be saying. That's what we're here to sharpen up. Listen carefully. Now, here's the word leg. And you might be wondering, how in the world is the word leg related to read? Well, it's right here in the first line. Leg, as the first part of a word, is the Proto-Indo-European root meaning what? Look at this, to collect or to gather. The same thing that they say read means, to collect, to gather, with derivatives meaning to speak. Always starting to broaden out the meaning now. To speak on the notion of to gather words or to pick out words. When we do that, it's for the purpose of speaking. It might also be the source of the Greek word legion, legion, which means to say, to tell, to speak, to declare, to count. There it goes again. Re-add. Originally in Homer, it means to pick out or to select or to collect, to enumerate. That's adding also. The word lexis comes from the word leg or the prefix leg, and it means speech, diction. The word logos that the Bible uses and says, in the beginning was the word. That word is a Greek word called the logos. And you can see even in the word logos, the word log. And people many years ago used to look at the human leg and think about the log. But it means word, speech, thought, account, and on again, to gather, choose, pluck, etc. You'll see this in the notes when you receive them. Let's continue. Now, the Quranic Arabic word qul, which many of us recognize. قل هو الله أحد قل أعوذ برب الناس قل أعوذ برب الفلق. It means to say. It's an instruction that tells us to say something, to speak. When we invert the consonants, invert just means make them backwards. We get the letters LQ. In the forward reading, it's QL. We're just dealing with the consonants for now. Qul has QL. If we invert them, it becomes LQ, which form the basis for the word locution, with the Q and the C being interchangeable gutturals. Don't worry if you don't understand the full context of what I'm saying yet. Just understand that every letter has a particular category of pronunciation. And the C, K, and the Q are interchangeable. Also, the letters K, you can hear it, K, C, if you pronounce it as a K, ka, car, locution. And there are other letters that fit into this category called gutturals. Even the letter H coming from the back of the throat or the front of the throat, wherever the letter is situated in the throat, is going to be what they call a guttural. So what does that mean? It expands my ability to understand words and language. Because now that I know I have a system for identifying categories of pronunciation, oh man, I'm off to the races after that. Because I can begin to take certain words and come up with new words that give me the understanding of what a new concept is presenting to me. I'm speaking now more about how we should look at the Quran and how to determine the meanings of words in the Quran based on Arabic letters that share these categories. But you can also do it for further understanding using the English language, as we just did with the word read, for instance. And there are many other understandings that we can come into by reading the interchangeability of English letters in this same manner. In order to say something or to speak and read, you must follow a process. Reading is an activity that begins with learning letters and then words. You don't learn words first when you're learning to read. You first learn single letters, identifiable letters. You put those letters together in a way that makes sense. You pronounce them a particular way. Then you have your word. So if the Bible does say, and it does, that in the beginning was the word, that's not saying anything about the beginning of the word, which is letters. And what are letters? Sounds. What are sounds? Tones. What are tones? Frequencies. So in the beginning was the frequency. Just waiting for the moment.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Somebody outside my window that thinks the frequency of their motorbike is exciting for all of us and not just him. But that's the world of playtime that we live in today's time. Continuing. Once again, reading is an activity that begins with learning letters and then words. When you add letters to each other, they become words and then sentences. So you can see the progression of how a word comes into being. First sounds or frequencies. Then we shape those sounds and identify those sounds as particular letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Aleph, Ba, Ta, Tha, and all of these other sounds that we have for the Arabic. And then we begin to put those letters together to form words, but the words need to make sense. And that's where the word sentence comes in. After you've learned a word, you put those letters together in a way that allows the words to form a sentence, but you can't call it a sentence until it makes sense. So what is a sentence? A doctrine, an authoritative teaching, an authoritative pronouncement, from French sentence, meaning judgment, decision, meaning aphorism, maxim, statement of authority. That's all we need from up here. Go here where it says see sense. So a sentence is only a sentence if it makes sense. I can give you all of the same words that are comprising that sentence, but if I don't give them to you in order, and it doesn't make sense, I'm just saying a, the, to, from, the store, those are all words that are in a particular sentence, but I'm not giving them to you in any sense of order. The meaning path in Latin is perhaps way of perceiving in the mind, to opinion, to decision, judgment. All of these words are connected to the idea of making a sentence. And you know that if you're in court and they sentence you, they can only sentence you if they have a level of authority over you. When they pronounce your sentence, they can come scoop you up right there, put your hands behind your back, take you straight to the cell. Isn't that interesting? They call that a cell. All of us are born out of cells, you know. The Quran just calls it min nafsin wahida, from one cell. We say soul, but a cell is the same thing. So that's your sentence. Every human being who was born out of a cellular structure was sentenced. And you can't escape it. You can't sidestep it. You cannot not obey it in terms of its growth, its structure, how you look, etc. All of those things. You've been sentenced to that. But sentence in this matter doesn't mean something bad. Every baby comes here with a sentence. And if it didn't have that sentence, those rules for behavior, growth, development, it wouldn't live. If it didn't have that particular protocol, that particular judgment over it to do things this way or else. In order to become understandable, the letters must be gathered in a particular order. We spoke on that. And the order must make sense to the mind. I'm building a case here, so you have to be very patient today. In order to make sense, there has to be order. So let's look at what the mind is. That which feels, wills, and thinks. Then they say the intellect. Later 12th century, mind. From Old English, your mind or your mind. Memory, remembrance, state of being remembered. Thought, purpose, conscious mind, intellect, intention. They're saying all of these words here are related to what the word mind actually means. You know, there are many of us back in 1975 who learned the phrase man means mind. Did you ever think that you would know in the future that mind had all of these different connections? It's not just somebody sitting down thinking, I think, therefore I am. No. It's somebody being able to have a memory bank of information that they can remember again, to bring the members back again. What members? Those letters and those words. When you're able to bring them back and put them into proper places, you are remembering. Thought, to think. In some languages, it also means love. The mind is related to the idea of love. Originally, memory had to do with loving memory. You know, you go to the funeral service and they say, in loving memory of somebody's father or granddad or mother or something, right? In loving memory. And it's from the suffixed form of the Proto-Indo-European root men, M-E-N, which means to think. And that's where Imam Muhammad went, I believe, to give us the phrase, man means mind. Man means not this biological flesh and blood that you look at in the mirror every morning, but man actually means to think. It means mind. The word ikra represents a mental state. Its English correlate is the word agriculture. The word acre is also related to the word ikra. The prefix men, as stated, refers to the mind or mental. Just as in agriculture, the mind needs to be cultivated. That's a major step up the ladder I just gave you. Ikra, related to acre, acre, related to agriculture. So again, the mind, just like in agriculture, needs to be cultivated. So when Muhammad was given the instruction to Iqra, he was given an instruction that included situate yourself for cultivation. And that cultivation is going to be based on the fitrah process that every other thing that's growing is following. Allah in the Quran says that He created you to grow like plants grow. That's in the Quran. He created us to grow like plants grow. In the surah called Ash-Shu'ara, the poets, that's Surah 26, Ayat 7, look at what Allah says. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَّا أَرْضٍ كَمْ أَنْبَتْنَا فِيهَا مِنْ كُلِّ زَوْجٍ كَرِيمٍ. They translate that as, do they not look at the earth? The earth is al-ard. And from the word ard, they also get the English word order that we've been using. Because the earth shows forth an orderly plan or an orderly design. There are lakes and oceans and fields of agriculture and other things that are separated into divisions that are very orderly in their presentation. So do they not look at the earth, how many noble things of all kinds we have produced therein? And wherever you're reading the Quran and it says anything about in it or therein or within, it's talking more importantly about that which is taking place inside of you. It's not talking so much about what you can plainly see on the outside. It's talking about using that outside template to begin thinking deeply about what Allah created within you. So this earth that Allah is speaking about is not necessarily this terrestrial planet that you were born into and grew up on. It's talking about a process that's taking place of growth and development that is on the invisible level because it's taking place inside of you. Fiha, in it. Feminine it at that. Not fihu, fiha. It's interesting, though, that there's a serious mistranslation here. So it says, how many noble things of all kinds we have produced therein. What do you mean of all kinds? It says that we have produced those things, zawji karima. And zawj is literally referring to pairs of things. That of all of these kinds, they were created in pairs, in twos. So that's an important omission, if you ask me. But they were all created in these pairs. We use the word noble to mean the same thing that we mean when we say karim, honorable. So if these things are being created in you, that means that Allah has created a particular signature that you and I carry every day, all day long. If you're not treating yourself as noble, if you're not treating yourself as honorable, if you're not treating yourself as generous, Kareem, it means all of those things. It's not because you're not that, it's because that you don't recognize that you are that. It doesn't mean that your honor has to come from somewhere else. You are that already. You just don't recognize it. You're just turning a blind eye to it, or you were never taught that you were honorable. That's why we do these bad and wicked things sometimes, because we're not in touch with the honorable nature that we were created in. Continuing. When we transpose the letters of the word heart, H-E-A-R-T, we reconfigure it to spell earth, E-A-R-T-H. Just take the H off the beginning of heart, put it on the end of heart, and you have the word earth. The earth is created to produce seasons, which continually flip and turn, producing changes in weather. Weather signifies emotional states of mind. That's why we can say to people sometimes, man, why are you so cold-hearted? Or we can say to other people, you're such a warm guy. I mean, I'm just meeting you and I just feel cozy all over. You just made me feel so good the way you greeted me and my family. Because human beings inside are also carrying different forms of weather. Hot, cold, medium, in between, cool, dry. Some people are just dry. Burning hot. Don't want to be out in that sunshine. Too hot, man. Find me some shade. But this is earth, and this is how your heart also operates in its different manifestations of its own weather patterns. So when you see heart in the Quran, stop thinking it's talking about the boom, 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 taking place in your chest cavity. It's not talking about your chest at all. Allah says in the Quran that He taught the human being that which he was before not knowing. There were tons of people who knew that the heart was in the chest. That's the ancient Egyptians. They used to take it out and preserve it. They used to preserve the brain. They knew about these different things in chemistry and in physics, the common things we're learning now about the body. They knew these things. They were masters of those sciences. So that was before the revelation of the Quran. Why would Allah teach you that in the Quran if He said He's teaching you that or taught that which was before you were not knowing this? These are things you were not knowing. That's an easy calculation. If I didn't know it, I'm reading it in the Quran. That's what the Quran is saying, but I already knew it. Humans already knew it, then that's not what the Quran is saying. It's really a simple calculation. Allah is talking about something deeper than that, something more intrinsic, something more internal that I can't see going on in how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, how I'm registering emotions. You can't readily see that. You have to be taught that. And that's what the Quran was here to do and is here to do. So, qalb in Arabic means heart and signifies both the physical organ and the center of emotions. See, the physical organ is the template for studying what Allah is saying about something that's not physical operating in you, such as your emotions, your intentions, and your spiritual awareness. In the beginning of this presentation, I spoke about the cave called the Hira, H-I-R-A. And you're going to find that many things in various stories that begin with the consonants H-R or the consonants A at the beginning of the word, then R somewhere in the word, like aware. This A substitutes also for the guttural H. When A is at the beginning of a word, it's actually a guttural, not a vowel. Just like we give Moses' brother in the Bible the name Aaron. But in the Quran, he's called Harun. See, the A is in the same place as the guttural H. So aware is going to be related to words like Hira, the cave we're talking about. And what is that cave inside of you? It's your sense of awareness. And you had to become aware first before you could come out into the world and recognize things on a conscious based level, a consciousness based level. So first comes awareness, then comes consciousness. This is all deep rooted psychology that I'm teaching you now. That's why I'm going so slow. All of these categories are related to human consciousness, but the emotions, the intentions are what are building the life towards understanding where it all began. And it all began in awareness, which I personally believe even the fetus in the mother's womb experiences in terms of awareness. They're not conscious. The word conscious means with choice. Con means with. Chis means choice or choosing. What in the world does the fetus have to choose from? But what does the fetus have to be aware of? Many things in its fetal environment, beginning with the heartbeat. Why do you think it's kicking so fiercely in the womb? It's responding because it is aware. So before life becomes conscious, meaning before it takes on what we call an intellect, internal election, it's electing to do things, it's choosing to do things inside, intellect. Before it takes on, you need an environment that it can respond to with its senses first before you can develop an intellect. You have to be out here in the open and say, oh, whoa, that's mama. I'm going to respond to her. I don't know who this dude is here. I mean, I don't want him holding me. See, he's got to have an environment to respond to. Isn't that wonderful? But he's aware of all of these things and he's not making judgments. The life of awareness is not a life of making decisions. It's not a life of making judgments upon people or things. And the child comes here with that basic same disposition, and that's why it will allow Adolf Hitler, if he was in the delivery room, to hold him. He might not let him hold him for long because of his vibrations, but he will allow the most evil person on earth to still hold him and feed him food, because that's all a part of his awareness until he consciously learns that this is a bad guy or bad woman or whatever. That's when they start to differentiate. That's where the Furtan principle comes in of differentiation. I don't want to be with these bad people, these bad guys in my class. They formed a gang and they're out there robbing people. I don't want to be, that's Furtan happening inside of you. It's a frequency. I might be misjudged. I might be locked up running around with these people. I don't know what they've done, but it's not what I do. So look at the linguistic meaning for kalba. The word kalba comes from the Arabic root qaf lam bait. We just say ba, but it's bait. Qalaba, which means to turn over or to change. This root reflects the idea that the heart is constantly in motion, capable of changing states. Happy one moment, troubled the next. The term emphasizes the dynamic nature of human emotions, thoughts, and spiritual conditions. Now, isn't this vastly different than what they've been telling us heart means when you read that in the Quran? They took the prophet's heart out, and as a baby, they took his heart out, Muhammad's heart out, and they washed it clean as snow. Washed all of the sin out of the heart and placed it back in the chest cavity, and he was able to rock on from there. Doesn't that sound weird? Is that the human example you're trying to get me to accept for me to live my life, when my life will never experience anything close to that level of activity? taking the brain out and doing this like ancient Egyptians used to, taking the heart out and rinsing it under the faucet water. Whatever they're telling us or trying to tell us that happened to Muhammad. Is that really what you believe, Muslim? Or do you accept that this is speaking on a different level and a level that you can get some sense out of if you stop and really learn to smell the roses in these stories? The broader concept. This is all AI, by the way, this dark writing. So be aware of that. Broader concept. Beyond its physical meaning, Arab represents the center of emotions, intentions, and spiritual awareness. It is metaphorically described as capable of turning, flipping, or changing, which aligns with its root meaning. This dual aspect, physical and spiritual, makes qalb a central concept in the Arabic language, Quranic studies, and Islamic thought. So they're telling you there's a platform of understanding that is in the fitrah for you to study. And it's that platform that is able to elevate itself once the mind begins to truly think and reason, that will develop a graduated level of understanding in that human being when they understand what the basic meaning is, and then allow that meaning to fully express itself in its metaphor or in its abstract meaning. We like to say even better than metaphor, in its abstract meaning, because the human being has been created as an abstract thinker, an abstract life form. In summary, qalb is not just the biological heart, but a profound symbol of human consciousness, moral judgment, and spiritual receptivity, reflecting both changeability and the potential for growth and guidance. So go back and look at those translations of the Quran that you have that speak about the heart in some mundane, plain Jane kind of way, and begin to apply these principles of logic. When the adhan says, come to as-salat or hayya ala as-salat, followed by come to cultivation, hayya ala al-falah, it is addressing this cultivation process. It is not addressing a ritual prayer service called namaz. That's actually a Persian word, not even an Arabic word. But they use it in mosques that claim to follow the Arabic Quran. This is namaz. They have bigger signs, namaz. That's where you go to make your prayer, your ritual prayer. Where did they get it? They got it from the ancient Persians, not from Muhammad. Moving right along. So hayya ala al-falah, come to cultivation, which they also translate as come to success, provides us with the keys for success. Simply follow the steps necessary for a successful cultivation or a successful garden. Your human mind grows in the same way a garden grows. So let's go back to the concept of Iqra, which we said is related to agriculture. What is agriculture? Tillage, cultivation of large areas of land to provide food. Original use is figurative, speaking of God. It's from the late Latin agricultura, cultivation of the land, a contraction of agri and cultura, cultivation of land. And it also means a field. Agro, field. Cultura, cultivation. Ikra, cultivation of things that grow. And all of the necessary things you need to assist that growth on the metaphysical side. On the non-physical side of how you think. What is culture? The tilling of land, the act of preparation for earth, pardon me, the act of preparing the earth for crops. And you can see a lot of this is repeat, but I left it there for your reading, perusal. It means care, cultivation, culture, and honoring from the past participle stem of coleri, to tend, guard. See? Cultivate the garden, that which should be guarded. Your growth, your evolution should be guarded, but it should be prepared for cultivation's sake. And the word colony is also related. The figurative sense of cultivation through education, systematic improvement and refinement of the mind is attested by circa 1500. Century Dictionary writes that it was not, quote, not common before the 19th century, except with strong consciousness of the metaphor involved, though used in Latin by Cicero, end quote. The meaning, learning, and taste, the intellectual side of civilization, is by 1805, the closely related sense of collective customs and achievements of a people. A particular form of collective intellectual development is by 1867. So if you ask me, I would choose from these meanings for words and concepts, I would choose this latter meaning when I'm talking about the cultivation of my particular ethnic group in this part of the country. I say these so-called Black people have had enough negative words and concepts thrown at them. Let's choose this meaning for cultivation and for culture. When we talk about so-called Black culture, we're going to stop saying Black. That's too negative a word. The absence of white, the absence of light. In other dictionaries, it means evil. Black sheep of the family, black this, black that. In most of these English-speaking dictionaries, Black doesn't have a great meaning, except when it comes to maybe Black Monday, I think, or something like that. You get a chance to save a couple of dollars when you go in the grocery store or in the supermarket or in the clothing store. You save a couple of dollars. Black Monday, I think they call it. If I'm not correct, let me know. But I think that's what they call it. But pardon me?
Yeah, Black Cyber Monday.
Yeah, okay, so I'm getting it right. Yeah. So listen, that's the only place you can find where Black is given a halfway decent meaning. Why would we hold on to that as a cultural group? But that makes no sense to me, but let's continue. What is the true cause of civilization? Civilization is the result of an evolving intellect. The intellect should not only be curious, it must also understand its moral responsibilities as well as its limitations. The primal intellect, now when I say primal, I'm not talking about primitive people swinging from trees and all of that other foolishness they told us. When I say primal intellect, I'm talking about the intellect that inhabits every single baby born to this planet in their quest to know things, to understand the world around them, to come into some level of enlightenment in terms of what is all of this about. That's the primal intellect that I'm speaking about. And that intellect, as I said, should not only be curious, it must also understand its moral responsibilities. In other words, what do I do with all of this? And it should also understand its limitations. This is why we call coming into knowledge a coming into knowing the ledge. If you know where the ledge is, you don't step over that line. That's what knowledge is. It's not about proving that you know it all. Knowledge is about saying, yeah, I do know this, but there's so much more that I need to learn. I could have a degree, 3 degrees in this topic or related topics, but I mean, I have so much to learn. And that's the Quranic perspective, you know. Allah, you know, and we don't know. That's the mental attitude of the humble person who's searching for knowledge. But again, it's right there in the English word, know the ledge. That's knowledge. And you know the people who know the ledge when you see people who don't want to pretend as though they know it all. You won't even really know how much they know because they'll be so busy retracting, backing up. I don't want to get too much into that. That's unnecessary information for this forum, for this audience. I need to go study that some more. So the primal intellect, listen carefully, the primal, the beginning intellect is curious. And its curiosities are what leaves it agitated and unstable. You see how many questions that child asks when he turns 3 and 4 and 5 years old. And just when you think you've slaked his quest for information, he's got another question. Mommy, why is the sky blue? Oh, well, it's because of a word called refraction. You know, the sun is reflecting its light. You give him all kinds of stuff. You know, this child don't know what the heck you're talking about. But as soon as you think you got that question licked for that person, here they come with another question. So how come the water is blue? Then you got to say, well, that's the sun reflecting off the water, and the water is not really blue; it's really see-through. And you got to go through all of these concepts that his little teeny weeny intellectual faculties can't absorb. So he's got another question after until some mothers get frustrated. They just shut up! I can't take it anymore. When you stop asking, go ask your father. You know? In a lot of our neighborhoods, you got to go far to do that. If you even know who the dude is. You got to call him. Hey, man, Ray Ray's daddy want to speak to him. You know, put Ray Ray's daddy on the phone, and he don't know. So the mind is. I'm joking. I'm being jovial now, just to lighten the burden of people whose minds are like, wow. And we have to understand the natural sequence of events that the mind is going through once it becomes curious. So when Allah says in this next surah, Ya ayyuhan nas, he's addressing this initial level of curiosity, which tends to get humans in trouble because we become too nosy, too noisy, and we share too much unnecessary news about ourselves and each other. When you're a child, you share unnecessary news about how you look naked. you, you, your mother's out there entertaining her company, and here that little 2-year-old come out here in his all together and with not a diaper or nothing on sometimes, laughing and running from you. That's too much news. And he's making too much noise. But I'm saying this to show you these consonantal connections in these English and Arabic words. Nas, nasty sometimes, right? Nosy, that's your child. Newsy, that ain't got nothing to do with you. Why you want to know all that? But because it's a growth process, Allah puts it in the Quran so that we will learn these different and various steps of our own human evolution, individually and socially. They're clocked into Mother Nature. Okay? This term nas is related to all three of these English words. Again, nosy, noisy, and news. Our job is to quiet the noise through meditation, concentration, and contemplation, which I told you in my previous books on the subject of the Salat, are all part and parcel of what Salat represents. And it's for the purpose of allowing our inner core to graduate. The inner core that we refer to as our soul's development, our core development, is based on coming into that understanding soul-wise, in terms of the nafs is what I'm talking about now. The NAFS of the human being, the nafs. The nafs needs to be cultivated. The soul needs to be cultivated in the same way that the soil needs cultivation. You hear the closeness of those English words? Soul, soil, because they're speaking to the same phenomenon. In the surah called Al-Hujurat, the dwellings, that's Surah 49, Ayat 13. Look at what Allah says. Ya ayyuhal nasu, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu inna akramakum inna Allahi atqakum inna Allaha alimun khabiru. Now, the first thing you have to do when you're reading the Quran is consider the audience that Allah is speaking to. Is he talking to the Muslims alone? No. Is he talking to the Arab population? Mm-mm. Is he talking to the tribes and Quraysh? No. This message that you're reading, and always be aware that he's speaking to a particular audience every time he speaks in the Quran. He's speaking to mankind. What's the name for that mankind that he's speaking to? Ya ayyuhan nas. Oh, those of you who are of this category called an-nas, the nas people. The people who, if they're not careful, they can become nasty. The people who are not, if they're not careful, they can become too nosy. They can become too noisy. Those people. They're becoming so familiar with each other, but not really. They want enough news on you to see if they can take what you got. Because they are uncultivated. These are not people who represent the best of civilized postures in humanity. These are people who are just getting a glimpse of what it means to interact with each other socially. These people are just out of the tribal life. That's why Allah's saying, look what he's saying. Oh, Nas, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female and made you into nations and tribes. Why? That you may know each other. Then the translator has to put in there just so you're not unclear, not that you may despise each other. That's not even in the Arabic. But he knew that that's what it was leading to, that you not be a person who becomes desperate, a person who becomes one who is looking at people in a bad light. That's not the reason he created you to be separated into tribes and nations and categories like that. Then he says, verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is he who is the most righteous of you. See, the human being, he needs to have that reinforced in his fitrah. Not that he doesn't know how to be right. The baby knows what's right and what's wrong on the basic level. The child knows what is right and what's wrong, but on the child's level, the immature, uncultivated level. But the human being, in order to grow and evolve, needs to know what righteousness is on the exaggerated level of everywhere I look, I want to be right. Everything I involve myself in, I want to be on the right side of the fence. That's a growth potential in you, but that's not you as you are born. That little baby will take that other baby's bottle in a heartbeat. He'll take that rattle and hold on to it like he brought it there. But let's look closer at what Allah is saying. This nas is created from a single pair of a male and a female. And he didn't put any third gender in there, just so you know. And made you into nations and tribes. When humans began to appear on this planet, they appeared in these smaller group categories. Many of the tribes that were existing in different parts of the world didn't even know that there were people on the other side of the mountain. They didn't know anything about other countries until they were able to travel there and have their intellects open up to that possibility. And not only are there other people on this planet, they didn't even know they were on a planet. Not to mention that there are other people. And look, these other people don't even look like us. They look like us in terms of their human form, but look at what they're wearing or not wearing in some cases. Listen to what is he trying to tell me? That's not even our language. Why is he trying to feed me this? This is not what we eat. So do you see? It's his curiosities that push him out further from that line of delineation called his tribal self and pushes him into a bigger dimension called the larger community of self or the larger nation or the country he's a part of. And the further out he's able to go, the more he's going to become curious about what else is out here. And some of them will become curious about what they can share, like children do. Just study the child. Child will bring his toy to another child to see if he wants to play with it also. So it doesn't mean that there's some innately nefarious tendencies in children. They are curious. We are social beings looking for the best case scenario for expressing our social nature. And we're doing it based on how other people vibrate when they're around us. What other frequencies do when they're in our presence. So Allah says, and uses the word لِتَعَارَفُوا. The actual word is ta'arafu. This li, this letter lam in the beginning, is not a part of the actual word, nor is this two-dot letter called a ta a part of the actual word. It's a prefix. The actual word is constructed of ayn, ra, fa. Many of you have heard the word Arafat. Arafat as a mountain in the Mecca regions. But this has nothing to do with a physical landscape or physical pebbles and mountains that you climb and all of that. is talking about something taking place, again, inside of you. But it means that part inside of you that becomes fiercely curious. If you look it up in a dictionary, it's going to say that arafat means to know or to get to know. But there are 2 or 3 other Arabic words that mean that also. And that's how they put it in the dictionary. When you talk about ilm, knowledge, it is going to say to know. If you use the word shara, you look it up, it's going to say it means to know. So what's the difference between all of this knowing stuff? That should be your curiosity when you're reading these texts and this information, especially pertaining to understanding the Quran. So this lita'arafu is a knowledge that is based on your level of curiosity. The more curious you become, the more knowledge you'll be able to gather. The more knowledge you're able to gather, the higher the level of knowledge you'll be able to grow into. And it's for the purposes, not as they're saying, to just know each other. It's to know and satisfy, I'll say, your curiosities. You're learning things and you're wanting to know things more and more because of your curiosity. Now, what part of the body is curiosity normally associated with? It's normally associated with your nose. Your parents used to say to you, why are you sticking your nose in everybody's business? That's what NASA does. It's exactly what Nas does because he's curious. Did I tell you to touch that? Why are you over there in everybody else's business? But nose also is connected to the idea of not only curiosity, but intuition. They say the nose knows. Even before the mind knows it, the nose, the intuition, that instinct in you knows something ain't right here. They say, I can smell it. They don't smell anything. Not physically, because they're not talking physically. They're talking abstractly, like we mentioned earlier. Humans are abstract thinkers. Why would Allah reveal the whole text, 606,000 something words, and none of it has to do with being abstract? Animals are abstract. Children, babies think abstractly. They take word for word what you say about something. But they grow out of that because they have to grow into this higher level of human development. That's what this is all about. What is the higher form of your human brain's expression? It is coming from a perspective that is abstract. And in this case of the nose or of Nas, your growth and development as an intuitive being. And whether you realize it or not, your intuition is actually a better gauge than your intellect. Do you know that most so-called primitive people, what we call the primal tribes that's being discussed here, do you know that what saved them in most occasions, on most occasions, and in most situations, was the fact that their intuition was intact? Because they go out into a field of forestry, woods, with all kinds of vipers. They didn't know this snake was venomous and this other one was okay and wouldn't bite it, or that this particular, you got plants out there that if you touch them you get poison ivy, and if you didn't know the difference because you were never curious why that guy fell out like he did when he touched it, you didn't get curious enough to say we better look at what's on his fingertips. and see what we can do with it. And any other plant that looks like this, 3 leaves, and don't touch it. That's how they were learning based on their own curiosity and their intuitive ability. Said, don't do that again. Or don't do this the first time because Johnny fell out from touching that. That's how we learn. Nas. And Allah is clearly putting Nas in the trajectory of our excellence. The most honored of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Continuing. Our ultimate aim is to become civilized. The Quranic word sabil is related to the English word civil. As you should know by now, the letter B and the letter V are in the same letter category called the labials, lip sounds. You need your lips in order to pronounce these letters. V, V, B, B. Also the letter F, Fa. Any sound from any letter that needs the lips to pronounce them, or even to halfway pronounce them, is in this category called labial. So you can interchange those letters. This is what I was pointing to earlier. You can interchange, even the letter P, pointing to. P is also a labial. So you can interchange them. And that's where the multitude of words develop and how they develop. So sabil, we say I'm working fi sabilillah. That means I'm working in the path of Allah. So how did that word come to be related to the word civil? And this is not your common scholar guy who discovered this connection. This is your uncommon instructor, Benjamin Bilal, who discovered this. That civil and sabil are related. Who else told you that? And I'm not saying that to brag. Maybe somebody else in the world said it before me. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. If somebody else said it, it's not common. Because this is a graduation period for us in America. I believe Allah has graduated us and is continuing to graduate us by bringing us into an elevated level of being able to discover new meanings for Quranic-based words. Because it's time that many of us come into leadership positions, and especially academic positions, where we're able to share with our children and our children's children who need it the most. They're saying that many of our children now couldn't pass an elementary school test on language. And because they really can't figure out language, they're graduating from high school now with diplomas and can't read. Cannot read. So we're in an Ecuador situation all over again, aren't we? So we're asking now that we read, but we're going to give you the proper tools for being able to identify these consonantal connections so that your intellect might become more fruitful and rewarding as a tool once you learn to use it. So we've lost what it means to be civil, haven't we? A bunch of our teenagers go into the shopping mall and create havoc that the police department can't even stop. You're outnumbered. People are getting shot and stabbed and so forth in many of these supermarkets around the country. And the police can't stop it. The National Guard couldn't stop it. I'm not saying this is the common thing, but it's becoming more and more common. Going to school and the frustration of not being able to do any work because you're just not mentally prepared for work. You're mentally prepared for socialization, fraternizing, finding out who that girl is sitting in the corner of the classroom. and whether she want to be with you or not. So when your mind is given to these low-level frequencies, then that's what you're going to attract. And that's where a lot of the problems are. So we need a new meaning, a new aim for what these words are saying to us on an evolved level. So don't look at civil as being a part of what we call the Civil War and that kind of thing. Being a civilian in the city and all of that. It means that, but it means much more than that. So when you teach your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and your neighbors' grandchildren and that kind of thing, when you teach them what these things mean, and these can be simple classes that you hold in your living room. You don't have to be in a school to share this information with children. They're all outside your door waiting to learn. We just don't realize it. They walk up and down your block every day. During the summer months, children are out of school. They're out there looking for trouble. Call a couple of them over to your block, to your stoop, or to your project building, and start asking them some simple questions that are going to unlock the possibilities in that young child's brain. That they didn't lose that. They just didn't know it was there. That curiosity is what I'm talking about. So the same NAS doesn't have to be nasty. That same NAS can just be looking for some new news that's going to help them graduate mentally, morally, and spiritually. So our ultimate aim as humans is to become civilized. The Quranic word sabil, as I said, is related to the English word civil. Sabil means path, the social path, which leads to true civilization. So we know that the word as-sirat means the path also, as-sirat al-mustaqim, the path of the upright ones. But sabil is a different path. Sirat is the path upwards. Sabil is the path horizontal. It's horizontal. That's why it's a social path, because the longer you walk that social line, you're going to run into other people who look a little bit, at least, like you. I forget which movie that was that had Will Smith in it, and I think his son was in it also, and it was like The Last Man on Earth, or so I forget the name of it. And they thought that they were the last humans to occupy Earth until they kept walking around and looking around. And then all of a sudden they ran into other people who look like them in a cave. You see, as long as you're on planet Earth, the further you go out, you're going to eventually run into people who look like you. Even if they don't talk like you, walk like you, smell like you, eat like you, sleep like you, they're going to at least look like you. Because that's the Sabir. So that's what makes you civil. Now, they say related to civil life or civil law pertaining to the internal affairs of a state. Okay. Relating to civil law, directly from the Latin civilis, relating to a society pertaining to public life, relating to the civic order, okay, befitting a citizen. Hence, by extension, popular, affable, courteous. See all of the things that civil is supposed to mean? Alternative adjectival derivative of civis, which means townsman. And then it says see city. See, when you go into these dictionaries and it says see this word, you need to go see that word. That's for you. They're telling you, don't stop here. There's more for you if you go see this word. Then it says, meaning not barbarous, meaning you're not being a barbarian. That's what being civilized means. So they're saying that's from the 1550s, specifically relating to the commonwealth of secularly organized, pardon me, as opposed to military or ecclesiastical. So that means that if you're not a part of the military in your society, you're not a part of the religious clergy in your society, all the rest of those common public people are to be civilized. It's relating to the citizen and his relation to the commonwealth or the fellow citizens, to his fellow citizens. Then it goes on to say that the sense of being polite, when we say somebody is civilized, he's really treating me, very civilized. It means he's being very polite. That was in the classical Latin language. It says, but English did not pick this up. It didn't pick up this nuance of the word until late 16th century. And it has tended to descend in meaning to meeting minimum standards of courtesy. Oh, he's being civil, even if he really doesn't want to be civil. And then they say to me, it's courteous. And that courteous is thus more commonly said of superiors, civil of inferiors, since it implies or suggests the possibility of incivility or rudeness. So these words go on to bud and to blossom into many different words and ideas that we have since used in the English language, at least. So when we think about ourselves as being civil beings, choose from the best meanings to describe yourself and the people that you work with. Civility is built into the fitra of your cellular structure. So if you want to know what true civility is, don't go to the dictionary first. Where is the concept of being civil operating in your own fitra, meaning in your own nature? How you operate in your nature that was created by a creator, the source creator. Where is civilization in you? Is it in what the judge said at the courtroom? That's why you're being civil now? Is it because your parents gave you that beating last time you did that? That's why you're being civil? No, civility goes even beyond that, and it begins in your cellular structure. Your cells are referred to as sites, C-Y-T-E-S. And from site, we get the word city. So the first true blue cities, before Manhattan and Chicago, East LA and these places, the first true city is in your bloodstream. That's the pattern. That's the natural fitra-based pattern upon which these other cities were originally established, until they started doing some freaky deaky things and instituting some freaky deaky laws that took it away from the fitra. So that site, they say it's a word forming element used in modern science to mean of a cell, from Latinized form of Greek kaitos, a hollow receptacle or basket. Then they say cyto. When you look further into it, you'll find that site, C-Y-T-E, means to hide or conceal. Oh, this is getting more and more interesting as we go along. In the surah called Atin, Allah says, وَهَذَا الْبَلَدِ الْأَمِينَ. وَهَذَا الْبَلَدِ الْأَمِينَ. And this city, sometimes they use the word town, of security. The city, i.e. the state or the site, pardon me, is hidden within the blood or the balad. The word balad here means city. The word amin means safety or security. So on the abstract level, this is saying, and this balad, which I have consonantally connected to the word blood in English, and this blood made secure. What's making the blood secure? The fact that Allah has put within you an immunity system. That's why your blood is secure, because it carries immunity against certain diseases. So look at where this one line in the Quran has taken us into the biological sciences, into the chemical sciences, and into these other levels of science that we can now use to correctly govern these sciences and these concepts. It says that the word sight, C-Y-T-E, means that which is hidden. Then the city within the blood is also hidden. And the blood represents the valid. We know that blood is symbolic of social life. We know that because we even call our relatives, "What's up, blood?" We know that's a social connection that they're making with us. Don't mess with him, man. Yo, 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 that's my blood. Don't be talking to him like that, man. They mean that's my family. And that family has an immunity. Sometimes we call it gang violence. We have gangs in our families. You can't just do anything to a family member. You is a fourth cousin on my mother's side, but he's still fam, you understand? And they will go to his rescue because he's related. So those cities are hidden within the blood. That is why, or that is what keeps the city secure. In the blood, that secure state is called immunity. When we say iman, we're really saying immune. And that's all the information we're going to share with you on this particular Sunday. I hope that you learned something. I hope that it has evoked some questions. And I pray that oh, okay. Eliana, you had your hand raised, so let's let you be the first one to ask a question. Thank you all for being patient enough to sit with us through this session. I don't think your microphone is on.
Okay, it was giving me some trouble. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Salaam alaikum to
Alaikum
you and
salam.
everyone.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful study, truly. What came to mind as a question as it relates to one of the wonders that I had studied when I first began studying Islam was how the revelation came to Muhammad and that it came to him being someone who was illiterate. But after your study today, it made me question, was he really illiterate or just ignorant to the frequency of the letters and the words being revealed to him?
You answered your own question. Yeah, it has nothing to do with him not being able to read letters on a page. Now, I know the scholars, many of them will tell you different, and they'll stick by that and they'll swear up and down that that's exactly what it means, that he was of the people who did not recognize or who was not taught the science of letters and letter combinations to form words and to form sentences, etc. But that's not what that level of ignorance, if you will, represents. And we'll probably introduce those couple of words that are used in the Quran to prove this point. There's a word called jahl, which they translate as meaning ignorant. And there are a couple of other words that are used about or used in order to say that Muhammad was ignorant. And again, if I get into it now, we'll be here too late. But I will, if you remind me, go over those couple of words next week or next session, next Sunday. one of those words, just so you can write it down, is ummiyid. Many of you have probably heard that word, that Muhammad was an ummiyid prophet. But don't worry too much about that right now. We'll go over it again, as I said next session. Okay. Now, did you say you had a couple of questions, or can I move on?
No, that was really the only question that I had, because it made me just think about, how they speak of him being illiterate, but after
Yeah.
everything you broke down, which I equate ignorance is not, because of course, growing up myself, I was conditioned to believe that ignorant meant stupid. But then in my own studies, it's just not being informed. That doesn't make you,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
built into the word. The word is ignorant. It means that there's something in you that you're ignoring. It doesn't mean you don't have it. It means that you just don't recognize that you have it. You're ignoring it. It keeps trying to pop up and show itself, but you look in a different direction. What is that? That's your own intelligence trying to, shine through. But you're ignoring it. That's all ignorant means. It doesn't mean the same thing as dumb. Dumb is a different inference because the B is silent, isn't it? In the word dumb. Nobody
right.
says dumb. These are the tricks in the English language that once you understand them and apply them to other situations that carry that same inference, you become smarter overnight. So dumb is from the Semitic word dam. That's in Hebrew and in Arabic. And dam means blood. Same subject we've been discussing. Now, without trying to break it all down, I'm not breaking it down on purpose because I want you to remain curious. So when we come back next session, we'll have some things to talk about. But Dhamma, yeah, D-A-M-M-A, Dhamma means blood. Well, I'll ask you this one question. What happens if all of the blood leaves the body?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get shot and all of your blood drains out, your body becomes dumb. Dumb doesn't mean he doesn't have intelligence. It means that he cannot express himself because the life energy has dissipated. And the silent B is talking about the profile of your human lips, not being able to speak. That's what dumb means. Not being able, like people say, stop playing dumb. I know you know who killed that guy. I mean, why are you not saying anything? Yeah. Okay. All right. Karima, your go.
I've been kind of like pondering it most of the week.
Hard to hear you for some reason.
I was
That's
okay.
better. Yeah, that's better.
I was pondering why you said nature is neutral. And we was thinking right that why people do things that might be immoral or whatever. But I came to the conclusion that nature is neutral, but your energy and your intentions and your hands are the ones that will give you your right deserve, because you bringing these things into your internally, you doing
I
it to
got you.
yourself.
You're
So
vibrating on
might,
that level of frequency.
yes, so you're calling it to yourself, and yourself, because you have internalized it, will be the one who punish you, not nature. Am
That's
I
correct.
thinking right?
That's correct. Allah says in the Quran, He said, in fact, it's not even Allah who's punishing you. He said, you're punishing yourself. He tells you that right in the Quran, but most people miss it. What you
So
see as punishment, nature doesn't see it as punishment. Nature sees it as a as an elimination process. Like you can't tell your body that eliminating waste is a punishment. It's a relief. That's how nature sees what we're calling punishment. Now that's a rough one to accept because people say, well, I know somebody who died unfortunately, and a baby died, and I get all of that. But you have to understand better what frequencies are and what frequencies do, and how matching frequencies cancel out each other or reinforce each other. So we're in the beginning stages of a process that's going to bring us into greater science of how frequencies actually operate. And once you get conscious control of the frequencies, you will also be consciously in control of most of the things that happen to you in your life, except for just the happenstantial things that would have happened anyway. It doesn't matter whether you caused them or didn't cause them. I'm talking about the things that we cause directly. And Allah sends you a warning in most cases because he lets little things happen to you. But we think because we got away with that little thing without real punishment, we're just going to keep getting away with it. So we become more and more lax, and we keep doing that same thing over and over again, knowing that we did get punished for it before. Remember in the story of the brothers of Yusuf? And they said, let us do this thing now and we'll repent for it later. Because they weren't feeling like anything was happening to them when they were doing it now. They were able to snatch Yusuf up, throw him to the wolves, put him in jail. Say, ain't nothing happening to us. We'll just, we'll deal with it later, like we normally like to say, right? We'll just deal with it later. We got to do this thing now.
That mindset today. They'll tell their daughters to do certain things, and when she gets older and whatever, then she will repent, so to speak, and make amends.
Yeah.
Some people still have that mindset today.
Yeah, that's wrong advice. Now
I
they could
know
be giving her
it,
they could be giving her some good advice, especially when they know that she does not know, and you're trying to sincerely advise your children or someone else's child. No, I wouldn't do that, because many people who I know who did that in the past, they had bad outcomes. So you can definitely use that principle. But when you're trying to get something from somebody or rob somebody of something, and you're using that just as a justification to do something that you want to get away with now, and there's a punishment, so to speak, for it, but you're willing to take that chance because you think in the in between, I can just go to God and say, I didn't really mean to do that. I'm sorry. This is the mindset for most people who call themselves religious. I'm going to do this now. Like they say, what do they say? 6 nights of praying. No, 1 night of praying and 6 nights of fun. That's how a lot of people see church. Hey, if I go to church on Sunday and I go up to Father so-and-so and I repent and I do the rosary, and the Muslims might say, if I count the zikr on my fingers 100 times, subhanallah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, then Allah will forgive me. And now I'm forgiven. It's Friday. It's Sunday. God has forgiven. He said, if I do this, he will forgive me. So now he's forgiven me. Now I got a whole nother 6 days to sin.
Same thing as people do with Hajj. They do bad things, go to Hajj, all my sins forgiven, blah, blah, blah. Then the next 3 or 4 years, they go back to Hajj again.
And they're going to have they're going to have a rude awakening when they finally get to where they're trying to go. So this is true. It's unfortunate, and we have to laugh a little bit about it to keep from crying sometimes, because these are major wrong turns on the road of life, where it wouldn't have been that difficult to make it to the pasture, to where the flowers are blooming and the trees are producing fruit, and the paradise. It wouldn't have been that difficult to keep on a road that would eventually extend out to paradise. But some people from Nas, they like adventure. They just like adventure. We like trouble. Some of us like, Marvin Gaye, Trouble Man. If there's no trouble at the end of the road, they don't like it. You know why? Because that's too much peace. And there's one thing operating in the human being that cannot deal with peace. I'm going to tell you what it is.
Ego.
Your ego. Your ego was not designed to be satisfied with peace. The ego has to draw attention to itself. And if you're all satisfied and in need of no real consequential thing, then the ego doesn't get a chance to do his thing. I have to save the world. Are you kidding? I'm the head honcho here. I'm the sun plexus. That's where the ego is. It's in the solar plexus. So I have to be the light for the rest of these knuckleheads in here. And that's what the ego thinks it's doing by saying, look at me. That's exactly what Iblis said. He wanted them to look at him. That's exactly what Pharaoh said. I know no other God except me. It's the same character taking on new tentacles. That's all. No difference between Iblis and Pharaoh. Iblis went about trying to prove that he was the one more worthy of Allah's attention than these other guys, these other angels, as they called. But that's not how it goes. In the end, they find out the real deal. And it's something that they don't want to deal with. But all of these things are not going on out there. All of these activities are actually taking place first and foremost, yes, inside of you. That's correct. In you. Okay.
Just say one thing and then I'm gonna go. But you know, when you're reading the Quran, Iblis told, so to speak, people, Nas,
Mhm.
that they will become like angels. But Iblis turned around. He never said, I am an angel. He never pointed fingers to himself like, be like me. He didn't say that. He told them to disobey. But he never pointed back to himself saying, I am an angel. He never, according to my understanding, he never said he was an angel. He told them to be like angels to get them to disobey.
Yeah. The whole idea of angels, in the way that most of us understand that term, is misleading at least. And no, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. It would offend too many people. So let's just say that it's incorrect, at least, to accept the idea of an angel in the way that most of us are registering that term. Because again, we don't understand that these concepts are operating within us first and foremost. If you can identify where it is in you, you can identify where it is outside of you. It wouldn't happen outside of you if it didn't first happen in you. The first consequence of an action is in the unseen world. There wouldn't be a baby in the womb unless something happened in the unseen world first. Wouldn't be a baby in the womb. There had to at least be an idea in the head of that person to put a sperm in there or to carry a sperm in there. And then the physical began to manifest. We think it's the other way around. And it's not. The invisible comes first. Bil ghaib or el ghaib. Then the other things begin to manifest. That's how life develops. We call it the imagination in our little world. We say, I was able to invent this new car. Mr. Tesla, or whoever was saying it, I was able to invent this new car because of an idea that came to me last night. Where's that idea, Mr. Tesla? In my mind, in my imagination. Where's your imagination? Inside of me. Can I see it? No, it's in my imagination. It's invisible. It's in me. And you won't know about it until I tell you about it or until I build it. Everything begins in the imagination. Watini, wazaytun, watur is sinin, by the fig, the figurative, the figment of my imagination. That's where things begin. If it's not here, it won't be out there unless I tell it to you and give it to you. Okay, well, build it this way. That's different now. I'm putting it out. But if I never put it out, you'll never get it. That's why you have to be very, very respectful of your own intelligence and your own imagination. And make sure that that imagination is following the rules and regulations that the Fitrah are supplying for you, and not some demon. You know, you can inherit demons, that spirit, and you begin to do things based on Beelzebub and these other characters who are out here in religion. These are just spirits that inhabit humans because we open up our frequencies to them. Wherever you're matching a frequency, you're letting other things through that portal. Now, it begins to sound a little bit sci-fi when I explain it like that, but that's the truth.
That in our psychology class. So right there, and we connected with Watini.
Yeah.
Well, Watini.
Yeah.
That's where he got us from the beginning.
Well, that's why he has our teens all messed up because he's dealing with the problems of the teens. Watini was a tune, created the human being from another kind of teen, right? From clay, something you can just take and shape it the way you want it, throw it back out there in the world. And it's what your imagination designed. Created the human being Mintin. It's a different tea, but the same concept.
People, when you understand it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So anyone else before we close out? Okay. That's a nice end to a very busy information day. Thank you all for being with me on this day. And inshallah, we will go on to do some very fruitful and rewarding activities between now and the next 7 days. And I thank you again for your participation. If there are any guests here with us today, I thank you also for your time and participation. And if you have any questions that you need to email me, my email address will be at the end of this video, but I'll give it to you in case you don't get a replay. And that is nunetics2@gmail.com. I'm going to spell that for you. NUNETICS, the number 2@gmail.com. One more once, nunetics2@gmail.com. Last name Bilal, Bilal. First name Benjamin, title instructor. You can put that or not put that, doesn't matter. Okay. Adib, you good, man? How you doing, man? You look like you're maxing and relaxing. I understand.
Say anything today.
No, but that's what he's here, and that's the beautiful thing. See, we know people have lives and things are going on and that kind of thing. But yeah, sometimes people, you got a cold, can't talk, and a whole lot of reasons why people don't say anything. But I love the ones who still show up, like him. Yeah. So we love you, man. Get well if you're not feeling too well. And Muhammad, the same thing. Abdul Alim, same thing. Whoever's not feeling well today or over the past few days, we pray that you take Karima Medina Bilal's advice and take that and do that, which is going to make you strong again. Nobody is out of the race for health and better health, for goodness. And you are just a reflection of how you're feeling on the inside. So when I see these bright, sunshiny smiles on this screen, I feel better. Okay.